What's up, guys? Today we are joined by a real-life explorer, archaeologist, historian, YouTuber as well, and possibly my long-lost twin, Lou Caverns, is on the pod, and we are talking about lost cities of gold, ancient jaguar people, the greatest city that's ever existed, in my opinion, New York City, but in Luke's opinion, the city of Alexandria, and much more. Sit back, relax, and indulge. Why is it that we see all these massive structures in Mexico and South? Why are there none of these in the northern parts?
That is a good question. Well,
pyramids.
Yeah.
Here.
So
Here.
This is something I've thought about, and I don't know that there is a perfect answer for it.
Why don't you see any pyramids in California? Why don't you see any pyramids on the way? And then all of a sudden they sprout up in, where's the first?
Probably the most northern is going to be about right here at a place called Teotihuacan. There. Yeah, so you've been there. Okay, yeah. So that's probably your first notable.
Pyramids.
There may be some pyramids north of that, but that's like your first. That's your northernmost stone pyramid. But that said, about right here in Ohio, if I'm pointing at Ohio, nobody really knows where Ohio is.
Yeah. I know what you're going to point out here.
Yeah, but you've got like the Adena mounds and stuff that come from 500 BC, but they're all made out of earth, right? It's just, and so yeah, so much here you have earth and timber, not as much bedrock. So you don't have as much stone to work with.
They just didn't have access to stone. That's why we don't see it.
Well,
there's plenty of stone on the West Coast.
And that's true. And like in the Appalachian Mountains, man, you've got so much granite and limestone that's poking out, but they're not using it. Not most of the time. There actually is somewhere in the Mississippian world, there is one stone pyramid that I've seen. It might be in Ohio itself. Here in the Southwest, you have lots of stone, and they're building like pueblos and, huge cities and stuff like that, cliff dwellings, so they're making stuff out of stone, but not pyramids. But in California, you had the highest, California, Oregon, Washington, you had some of the highest densities of Native Americans in North America, and they didn't build anything like that.
Why?
I have no idea.
Well, this is something we need to understand.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that people in your position have asked these questions tons of times.
Sure.
It's like, why all of a sudden does this modern technology, and modern for the time, right? Like pop up in these regions and kind of only in those regions?
I'll give you an idea why I think.
Why?
So when you're in the Maya world, the jungle is straight up hell.
Give me the Mayan Empire, more or less.
So the Maya world is going to be the Yucatan Peninsula, about right through here, like that southern
Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras,
El Salvador. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's right. So the jungle out there sucks. Like, just walking through it is hell. And it floods all the time. There are, definitely the America's most venomous snakes live in the highest concentrations right here. Of anywhere you're going to find them in America, it's the fer-de-lance snakes. And you got eyelash vipers, all kinds of other stuff. And so there's a lot that exists on the forest floor that can kill you and your children, especially like kids, just like that. And it floods all the time.
So to incentivize you to build structures.
Yeah, so what they want to do is they want to build platforms. And so you want to get up off of the forest floor. And then other people are going to want that. So you make the platform bigger, and then it becomes bigger, and then it becomes bigger. But you do it out of earth, but the earth erodes. So then you got to do it with something stronger. You got to do it with stone. So you're trying just to survive in this hellish jungle environment, and they have a lot of stone bedrock, which is why, like in the Amazon, it's all clay. So they don't have anything there. And well, when you get halfway through the Amazon, you got more granite bedrock that's out here, but a lot of here it's just clay swamps.
Right.
And so in the Maya world, that is where we see the first stone pyramids pop up. There's one in a place called Coelho, Belize. I was just in Belize maybe a month ago or so, and it's just a little pyramid, like maybe the size of this room, and that dates beyond 1000 BC, and then it kind of spreads out from there into the Petén jungle in Guatemala. There's a site there called El Mirador and Nakbe, and those sites go back to so that's Coelho. That's a little bitty site that most people don't know about. If you look up El Mirador pyramid, so these pyramids are absolutely massive. The biggest, I think,
is this the newest one that they just discovered, and they say it's like the biggest, largest amount of rock?
So that one, that's El Mirador. So get this, that's the little tiny top section of the pyramid. The rest of it is covered up by the jungle.
Oh, wow.
And get this, the bottom level, so that's El Mirador, the one that's looming over everything.
Yep.
So that's roughly how big it is versus the pyramids in Egypt.
Holy shit.
Now this graphic is extremely controversial because it really depends on how large, or how you measure the pyramids, because pyramids in Egypt are straight up pyramids. It's a pyramid, right? But pyramids in Mesoamerica, it starts as a pyramid here. And so like that photo that you saw is this top level of the pyramid. But then it comes down and there's another flat level here with 2 more pyramids on it. And it comes down another way. And then it comes down a little bit.
So they're height maxing in a way.
They're height maxing. And so there's this...
If they have a vantage point where they're standing, they're a little taller.
Exactly.
Like,
and there's this huge platform at the bottom. And so that pyramid at El Mirador is so large that you climb up it and you're like, wow, that's a really, really big pyramid. And you just keep on going up and up and up. And then when I came down it, I came down the pyramid, I reached the bottom and I walked for like 5 or 10 minutes or so. And then I hit another ramp going down. And I had still been on the pyramid that entire time. There's a big old flat courtyard. And so the bottom of the pyramids of El Mirador actually span the entire central part of the city. So when you get down the pyramid, the actual base of that pyramid
is the entire city.
Extends out far into the jungle, and then people were living on that bottom pyramidal platform, right?
And this pyramidal platform is with rock that they placed there, or it's existing bedrock that they built?
No, it's rock that they brought in, all of it. And at El Mirador specifically, El Mirador is one of the oldest sites in the Maya world, and just like you see in so many other places, the farther you go back in time, the more sophisticated the architecture becomes. The stones, like most of the Maya world is just rubble that's about this big, and it's packed in with this really sophisticated, like superheated cement that they use to like bind the structure together. And they have these really nice, like stone framing on the outside to make all the stones look square. This is in later periods. But in the earliest times, 3,000 years ago, at the site of El Mirador, in the middle of the jungle, the most inaccessible place you could possibly be, and they're so protected, right? Because no one's traveling far out into the jungle, so they're able to build up the city without being, invaded by raiders and marauders and stuff like that. So they quarry out these stones that are 8 feet long, couple feet wide, couple feet tall, and they stack them not like Lincoln logs, but they stack them in vertically. So, horizontally laying down. So they're like slid into the structure, right? So it makes the structure impenetrable. Like most Maya pyramids, when they're left in ruins, a tree will grow, like its roots will grow into the pyramid and pull the blocks apart. Well, at that site, the jungle grows on top of the pyramid, but if you pull a tree down, it actually just pulls the jungle off of the stones like a carpet laying on top of it, because the stones are so big and packed together that the foliage cannot possibly penetrate.
I don't know if this is the same thing, but when I've seen a few different pyramids in Mexico. When I went to the ones near Mexico City, what is that site called?
Well, the big one is Teotihuacan.
The Teotihuacan, which is the one where you can go for the solstice, and it looks like the fire is coming out of the serpent's mouth at the bottom.
Chichen Itza.
Chichen Itza. Okay, so I saw both of those. Teotihuacan is the bigger one, where it's just not just one pyramid. There's a huge one, but there's all these other little pyramids. It's a whole city.
That's right.
And the pyramids look functional, whereas like when you go to Egypt, the pyramids, they kind of look like something to marvel at, but you don't even know what the utility is.
Exactly.
This felt like, hey, shit goes down here. We got some shops.
They're
this
living
is where
on
we
it.
hang
They're
out.
using it.
Yeah, we're playing ball over here. Like it actually felt like a proper city.
It's public architecture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what was interesting, and this is kind of, I imagine what you're speaking to, I'm not exactly sure, but they had showed like images of what it looked like before, and they just looked like hills because the ground had kind of like consumed it and grown up over it. And it really kind of makes you look at every hill in Mesoamerica and you're like, what the fuck is underneath that shit? Like how much of the things that we're seeing as different types of elevation are actually maybe some small pyramids, maybe a big thing? I mean, this was a massive, see if you can get, is it Chichen Itza or Teotihuacan?
Either one.
See if you can get Teotihuacan before it was excavated.
Yeah, that's right. There's a painting. Well, there's an old black and white photo.
Yeah,
and then
that's what I saw.
There's a famous painting of it too.
Yes, this is what I saw.
Yeah, so it's just a massive hill.
Yeah, it's a mountain, bro.
So like, and when you're looking at it, there are mountains in the distance, right? And like I'm sure
That's
every
right.
tour guides give you a different thing. And they were like, they were making these mountains to honor the mountains they saw there. I don't know if this is something they're just feeding me, but I'm looking at every other mountain around. Like, let's do some digging.
The whole
Look at that.
The whole they're building this.
Now show it without any of that on it.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
It's like, bro.
Wow.
Yeah, it's freaking
I mean,
awesome.
what an insane, like, it looks like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, Star Wars is inspired by Mesoamerica, like completely. The whole thing is. The very word Star Wars comes from the Maya. Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah. So this is what's crazy. So you remember the rebel base on Yavin 4?
No.
Like in the jungle.
Yes.
Yeah,
With the
yeah.
little,
The
little guys are running around?
No, that's the rebel. That's the moon of Endor. But the base on Yavin 4 is in episode 4 or A New Hope, and it's basically where like I don't even know, before they go blow up the Death Star. That's where they're all at. But anyways, there are Maya pyramids at the site of Tikal. That's what's in those shots. Well, the Maya city of Tikal was the very center of this huge Maya civil war. But the Maya, the key thing about the scientific part of their civilization is that they're all astronomers. So the name, through some way, the name of their civil war becomes the Star Wars. And it's based around the city of Tikal, which the city of Tikal becomes the rebel base in Star Wars. It's pretty cool. I'm sorry, what were you asking me about?
We're just talking about like why this technology kind of exists in certain places and it doesn't. And I guess technology erupts because of necessity. So you're saying it's inhabitable? Some of these areas were inhabitable to just be like living on the ground. You got snakes everywhere. We got to elevate a little bit. And
one of the things you were telling me about the size and the scale of their building projects that it still sticks to me. That's so crazy. And correct me on this, and maybe you can even just explain more. They would build so much and excavate so many trees that they would actually change the weather.
Yeah. That happened a lot.
Game, bro. Put them on a little game right here.
Here in Honduras, there's a place called Copan, and at Copan there is evidence that. So there's all kinds of ways that you can date like events and drought. And if you can find pieces of timber, you can date the timber and figure out like when they're not using timber anymore. It's just a lot of relative dating methods.
Mines, Edelman, change in weather.
That's right.
we know.
Yes.
We're there.
And,
we got
See
it.
where you at.
Still haven't told us.
I know, right?
Still haven't told us.
On the end of our seats.
So you could pull up the Maya city called Copan, Copan. It's in Honduras, and at this site there is evidence that they were cutting down the trees in the use for their architecture. So what they would do is, I can't quite explain. You have to be like a chemist or scientist, like really break down how they make stucco. But they're cutting down so many trees to make what's called stucco. We use stucco in modern day architecture as well. But it's like plaster that you'll put over, that they would put over the stone to give it this smooth white face. Like the Romans would do this, the Greeks would do this sometimes, and then they would paint over that. But the stucco had to constantly be repaired, and it requires a lot of wood and timber. And there may also be this psychological aspect of like, they want to separate themselves from that jungle environment. So if you could have your whole area cleared of trees, it was like you were elevated on a societal level, right? Like you were seen as something. It's almost like you conquered the natural world, right?
Animals live in the jungle. Humans live in cities.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So you're elevated above it. And so there's evidence there that if you were standing on the principal pyramid of Copan and you were looking off into the horizon, 360 degrees, you would not see a single tree. That's how massive the city of Copan and in this surrounding environment really was, and how many millions and millions of people live there. Well, they changed the weather patterns by eliminating all the trees. It stopped raining, and so the entire civilization just has to pick up, and they all have to leave.
Shit.
And there were a lot of things that all came together, and it was like the Maya world around 800 AD, 900 AD, just completely collapsed and disappears for a couple years or for a couple hundred years, and then reappears up in the north, like in the Yucatan where Chichen Itza is. So they were all originally. So like a lot of the tourist stuff is up here in the northern Yucatan. This is some of the best preserved stuff because it's a little arid and hot. But the Maya world began down here in these lowlands, I guess some of it's mountainous, some of it's lowlands. But this southern Maya area in those deep jungles, and it all fell apart, and they all had to move north and go. And like all the cities throughout the whole, like the Maya Civil War, these hundreds of cities warring against each other, millions of people at war and struggling, all of them have to abandon their cities at the end of these civil wars because of just the trade routes are falling apart, and they've used up all their natural resources and drought, and this volcano erupts in 800 AD and casts this huge black plume, over the Maya world and completely buries one city in ash, at least one city, kind of like a Pompeii.
So that's preserved?
Yeah. There's several cities like that. There is a Mesoamerican Pompeii. I believe it's called Cacaxtla. And it's really, really cool. But about 800 AD, that's the collapse of the classical period, and then they all have to kind of rebuild and go north. But right here, when you're asking about the majority of construction and pyramids and stuff, really, actually, the majority of that is just about right here. Throughout all of the Americas. I mean, we have stone architecture in South America, but most of it...
Machu Picchu, right?
Yeah, but most of it is just in the center of the Inca world. You got some stuff up here. You got a little bit. There's a little bit that's further south. Some of it is kind of Inca or on the peripheral of the Inca world. And then you've got Tiwanaku in Bolivia. But throughout most of South America, it seems to be a lot like North America, where they're building out of... they're building structures out of earth.
Where does the technology go? What are the theories on that? Like, how does the society build all this unbelievable stuff to the point where, like, we're kind of confused how they're able to do it, and then gone?
And what is some of the technology that you're most impressed by?
Yeah,
that's gone.
Oh gosh.
Again, these are all theory. Like, this is not fact. Don't feel like you have to get everything right here. Like, we're just. Yeah.
He's not going to fact
balls.
check me.
I'm not fact checking. We're not doing it over here. Yeah.
So, but as far as where it goes and even where it comes from,
yeah,
it's very strange, isn't it?
What do you think? Like, you study this more than anybody. You're watching these things. You're looking at them. You're walking around them. We don't even know if we could do them today. Of course we could. My buddy says this. He's like, my buddy Ben Uyeda, who is a craftsman, and in his own regard, is like, you have to understand, back in the day, that's all they were doing is really just kind of finding food and then building shit, right? And there was a Steph Curry of building shit, right? So there are people that all of their expertise was pointed in this one direction.
Yeah.
So it's possible that they could do these amazing things, but there has to be some conversation between you guys where you're like, okay, where the fuck did it go? Is there remnants of it anywhere?
Yeah. You know what's sad about where we're kind of at now is if you try to have that conversation with most archaeologists, they're sort of instantly repelled by it. Because
Take me to a bar with a few archaeologists where you've had, a few Bud Lights, you guys are chilling, nobody's listening, nobody's recording, you guys are sitting down and you're just going, all right, what do we think happened? We're not going to write a paper on this. What are our suspicions? Again, you're not hanging your hat on this for your career. What is you're going to tell me what Atlantis is later. So
sure,
you might as well what do we think?
Well, let's go to across all of the Americas as far as architecture, obvious like architectural technology that is most impressive to me is definitely centered around Cusco, which is the navel of the Inca realm. That's where the Inca emperors were and everything. It's so mind-blowing. And the size of the architecture, some archaeologists hate this, but like the precision of the stone architecture, it's...
Why do they hate that? The precision is what's impressive. When you see these
hate if you use the word precision.
Why?
Right? Well, I think we're in sort of like an anti... I don't know.
Looks like a guy who runs a daycare's teeth.
So that's
you don't get it?
Who runs a daycare?
Yeah, who runs a daycare in Minneapolis?
Oh, okay. Now I got it. It's a racist
good,
joke.
it's good.
It's a
I got it,
disgusting
my bad.
racial
So
joke.
this is the side of Sacsayhuaman. If you want to see the thing that I am impressed by the most, look up the Temple of the Sun or Temple of the Moon at Machu Picchu. It should.
I have a lot of
come up.
questions about Machu Picchu.
Yeah. Let's
Are
do
we
it.
going to get into Machu Picchu?
I think the question you're asking, we should go to Machu Picchu to answer it.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, I saw your breakdown. You do a great breakdown on YouTube, and you talk about the story of Bingham, who's this Yale professor.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
nobody's in his fucking class. He's like single-digit students in the class, and he's like singularly obsessed with this. And he goes out into the jungle, and he keeps on asking questions. And eventually, a guy's like, "Yo, you got to check out this other thing." And they're trekking. They're going across rivers, and there are these like wooden bridges crossing these freezing cold, fast rivers. And he's like on his hands and knees walking across them. And they eventually come after days and days and days, and they find Machu Picchu. And I've seen pictures of Machu Picchu. Maybe we can, there's an example, but I think you can look at like, there's this town that's, 8,000 feet in the sky? Meters? Which one?
Yeah. Like maybe 7,700 feet.
Okay, so 7,700 feet up. It's a 4-day hike or 5-day hike if you're going to do it as just a regular person. I think they have other ways now where you can kind of drive.
You can take a bus up. Yeah,
Take a bus. And then even after taking the bus, I think it's still a hike, right?
Just a little bit.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So here's the thing to me, which I don't get about Machu Picchu. I think part of the reason why I don't get it is because the elevation doesn't do much for me. When I saw the pyramids and when I saw Chichen Itza and Teotihuacan, I'm just looking at these things. I'm seeing heavy blocks stacked on top of each other. I'm looking straight up in the sky and I go, these things get really tall. It's the same thing when I look at a skyscraper, right? I grew up in New York with skyscrapers. I went to Chicago and I was like, oh shit, you guys got tall buildings too. This is impressive to look at. These structures don't seem that tall.
Yeah.
So like to me, it's not this like awe-inspiring moment that I had when I was in Egypt.
So you've been to Machu Picchu?
No, I haven't been to Machu Picchu.
Okay,
and the
okay.
reason, I think part of the reason why I'm not compelled to go, I'm like, okay, like they got a couple stories or something like that. But the pyramids is the most miraculous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Outside of the birth of my children. That is outside of the birth of my first child. After you saw it once, it's not, yeah.
It's like a rerun.
No,
It's
every
Ghostbusters
life's a
2.
miracle.
No, they're miracles. They are miracles. I'm just saying it's, you saw it,
Yeah.
No, but it's
You saw it, Mark,
You know how the movie goes.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, do you remember the second time you had sex?
yeah.
Oh, really?
I was 25.
So help me understand why this is so miraculous. Is it getting the stone up to that elevation? Is it the way that the structures are built? And I understand that my take is the weird take here. Most people are just blown away by what they created. But am I approaching this with
You're asking if you're seeing it the wrong way. Or something.
I'm assuming I'm wrong here. Help me be.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're wrong, right? Like everybody kind of has their own interests.
Nah, shit on him.
I was actually
Please.
telling him yesterday that I am sort of passingly interested in like the medieval world, but I can't figure out what is it that people are so obsessed with about the Middle Ages and knights with armor and all that stuff. I haven't figured that out. So I get what you're saying, right? It's just for some, different strokes for different folks. But I'll tell you what's so amazing about Machu Picchu. And I think maybe you and I were talking about this. So I saw Machu Picchu and the Great Pyramids for the first time, like 7 days apart. And it was
You flew from Egypt to Peru?
from Peru to Egypt, yeah. And so it was a wild time. But I have actually never been as impressed with anything in person as I was Machu Picchu when I saw it
Take
for
me
the
there,
first time.
please. I want to go.
Yeah.
I want you to inspire me to go.
So Machu Picchu is very hard to describe. This view that you're seeing right here, like a lot of people's experience when they go to see the Great Pyramids, some people are actually disappointed when they go to see it because they'll say something like, "Oh, I didn't realize that it was right next to modern day Cairo and there's trash everywhere and there's people trying to bug you and this, that, and the other," and they'll be disappointed, whatever. Looking at Machu Picchu in real life is better and more imposing than this photo right here. The steepness of the mountains, like it's imperceptible. You can be standing on the top of the mountain, you can't see the bottom. It's just like straight below. It's hard to describe, and it's not an easy journey to get to Machu Picchu. So by the time you arrive there, you feel like you've earned it. Like if you and I wanted to go see the pyramids right now, we go to JFK, we fly straight to Cairo, boom, we're there within 30 minutes. We can go see the pyramids. If you and I wanted to go to Machu Picchu, we'd have to fly LaGuardia or JFK to Miami, Miami to Lima, Lima to Cusco. We'd have to get a taxi out to a place that's 3 hours away called Ollantaytambo, and then we'd have to get on a train from there to go Aguadas Calientes, and then we have to get on a bus to go up the top of the mountain, and then you have to hike over the backside of Machu Picchu, and then you're there, right? So it's like you've traveled this long way to get here.
You're enduring a very privileged version of the journey that these people endure to get there. You really have to chew on that to experience it.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of one of those things, where it builds up,
Yeah.
And as far as the size of the architecture, why it's so imposing.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I didn't realize these walls are built right on the side of this cliff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and
Approximately
it's
how
even
many
more so
people
than that.
live there?
So you see that mountain peak in the back?
Yep.
Yeah.
On top of that, the city is still up there. The city still continues all the way up to the top of that mountain and around the sides of it. So those walls go around the sides of it.
Hold on.
Oh, I thought it's
Which
just
mountain
this
peak are
area.
you talking about? The one where the arrow is right now?
Both of them. So that's Huayna Picchu, and then there's another structure on top of the little peak to the left of it. That
And
one too.
you can walk from this thing that we're looking at, this plane, all the way up to that other...
Yeah, I've walked the whole thing like 4 times.
Oh, I thought it was just this plane here.
No, it's the entire. So where he's standing, he's actually standing on the mountain of Machu Picchu. The city itself sits on the low end, and then that mountain on the back end is called Huayna Picchu. But the actual city itself of Machu Picchu wraps and consumes the entire mountain, both mountains.
Holy shit.
So, do you see that? You see that kind of grassy knoll? If you're able to you can go back to that frame that we were just on. So you see that grassy knoll that's kind of back in the middle?
Yep.
So if you walk beyond that, it's just jungle, and there's a little like muddy trail through there, and you can walk that trail all the way up to the back to that back peak of Huayna Picchu. And throughout the entire time, there are structures in there just covered up and like swallowed up by the jungle. And so you're really like walking in the steps of Hiram Bingham when he's there, sort of for the first time, and seeing these structures like popping out of the forest. The thing for me that captivates me, and why Machu Picchu is definitely the most imposing archaeological site that I've ever been to, is one, it gives you a sense of the sheer scale of this civilization and how powerful they really were to be centered in Cusco. And you start from Cusco and you take this taxi ride 3 hours out to Ollantaytambo, and then you take this, this train is moving like 50, 60 miles an hour through the mountains, and then you reach the Amazon, and then you're just looking around and you're like, this whole area was conquered by this one ancient civilization. Like this entire region that I'm in was owned by them. And everywhere you go, you see like ruins on the side of the mountains, and you see these terraces like lining the sides of the mountains, and you can see how they were feeding millions and millions of people. You get out into the Andean Amazon where this is, and you go up to the top of this mountain, and you're standing up there and you're like, okay, so at what point do people, and we got to remember, they had no pack animals. There's not horses, there's not oxen.
So they're carrying all of this.
They're carrying all the weight of all of this. Okay, so the Egyptians may have had pack animals. Like we see, well, I mean, we know that they did, but whether or not they had them during the time of the
They
pyramids.
also had a waterway, right? If you're going to excavate from some quarry miles away, you could potentially...
You can put the stones on the water and transport them there, and then it's only a short way to get them, in ancient times,
It was probably right next door.
Do you remember the temple that's right next to the Sphinx?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Valley Temple. When you're standing out in front of that Valley Temple, the Nile was actually right there.
Right, yeah, I read about
right
this.
there.
Yeah.
So when they got the stones off, They just have to take them a few hundred feet to get into where the pyramid's going to be. And how you get the stones up is a logistical like nightmare. I don't actually understand how they could possibly do something like that.
Yeah.
But we're looking at much of the equivalent things happening here. They have roads going up the side of the mountain where they're transporting stones up.
So these stones are not quarried from the mountain itself. They're coming from.
Well, most of them are.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're definitely bringing a lot up into the mountain.
Shit.
So
it's the sheer scale of the city at this altitude.
It's the scale of the city at the altitude, how treacherous the actual mountainside is, that it was clearly made to be a defended and beautiful but protected fortress. And some of the architecture there is only rivaled in Egypt.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Some of the architecture there is only rivaled in Egypt in one or two places. Like a lot of the architecture in Peru in the Inca realm is vastly superior to most of ancient Egypt. I mean, there are places like the pyramid itself is amazing, but a lot of it is carved out of soft limestone, right? But that inner chamber, that's that red rose granite, which is mind blowing. That those lintels that sit up in the ceiling are like 80-ton stones.
Yeah.
Well, and they're made out of red granite. Well, here we have gray andesite, which is sometimes, depending on where it's quarried from,
Just as dense?
maybe a little bit more so.
Wow.
And they're using stones that are the equal size and weight to the lintels in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. And the way that they fit those stones together, it's all done on purpose because they know that Peru has been a seismic area for millions of years probably, and the ancient Peruvians were very keenly aware of this. So there are like sites out in Lima where they would use these little vertical bricks and they would stack them up. And this site, I believe, is much older than most of the Inca realm. So
seismic. What do you mean by that? Like
seismic is like an earthquake. Prone to earthquakes.
Yeah.
And so I think it's called Marca in Lima. There's a site there where they use these little bricks and they stack them up vertically, and they have little spacers between the bricks so that when an earthquake comes, the whole structure will just wiggle back and forth and it won't fall. And so that's Marca. So you can see the stones are stacked vertically there. So this is telling us that these people were, one, very sophisticated, very familiar with their natural environment and how to avoid catastrophe during it. So what it's doing is it's showing us that this isn't something that you figure out in one lifetime. This isn't something you figure out in 3 or 4 or 5 lifetimes.
Yeah.
This is thousands of years of studying your natural environment and trying to figure it out. And so it shows us that, okay, a lot of this technology, this understanding of your natural world goes really far back in time. Now, Machu Picchu is essentially the precipice of all of these things brought together. It's all built up on this huge mountainside. And now, not all of the architecture is that incredibly precise megalithic stone architecture. Some of it is like cruder rubble and mortar put together for, I don't know if anybody's living there who is actually a normal person, but maybe not for royalty. But for these sacred places that are almost obviously astronomical observatories where they're studying the night sky and they're studying the sun and the moon. These places all have this huge megalithic architecture. Like one of the stones that's in, I think it might be the Temple of the Moon.
I think I saw this.
One of the stones, you could only fit a couple of those stones in the studio. And
is this the one that has the 36 different?
So that one would be in Cusco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
no. There was 2. I remember in your video you were talking about. There's one in Cusco, which is the most famous one that has like 16 different etchings.
That's right. Okay.
And then what's the other one that?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's
I know your shit.
You do though. You actually do.
But you said that this was actually more impressive than the one in Cusco.
That's
the one
right.
in Cusco is the famous one. I think you can describe it.
Yeah. So there's a stone in Cusco that's got.
12, is it?
It's 12 different
or
angles,
16
and
different
14
angles
different sides. It's something like that. And that's the famous one because whenever you go to Cusco, you walk down the marketplace next to it's the temple of I'll think of it, but
just put Cusco.
Yeah, Cusco 12-sided stone. And that's the one that's the most famous.
Everybody's seen an image of this.
Everybody walks up to it and takes a photo with it.
Look
But
at this.
People
and
don't
the precision
realize
of this.
Yeah,
So-
it's amazing. There you go. And you can get it's that huge stone that's there on the left. So what's interesting about this stone, so this is the 12 angled or 12 sided stone or something like that. So what's interesting is this stone has all of the hallmarks that people are so fascinated with this kind of architecture. One, at the bottom left, you've got these nubs that sit on a lot of these stones.
Oh, I've
Have you ever seen
this.
this?
Yeah. What is the purpose of the nub?
My guess is pivoting. So you have this. So you've got this big ass stone, and if you can put,
this is so
if
cool.
you can put the whole weight of the stone on
one
little
tiny
point,
little thing,
you can twist it around and move it.
Have you
and
ever
drag
seen
it.
that guy? I forget where he is, but he was doing these experiments on how to move the megalithic.
Wally Wellington?
Is that his name?
Yeah.
And he found if you put a pebble underneath them on flat enough earth,
Mm-hmm.
that you could completely rotate them 360 degrees.
Yeah.
So you don't need to lift the entire thing. You need to lift them enough where there's a leverage point. I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah, I just call it a pivot point.
Or
I
a pivot
guess.
point. Yeah. So that's really great. So they use that as a pivot point so that they could rotate them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the guy.
Yeah, Wally Wellington. So a lot of people will look at this and they'll go, yeah, Wally Wellington's work is genius, but it doesn't fully explain how, let's say, the pyramids were built.
Sure.
He can't really explain, at least on his own in his lifetime of doing this, he's not able to explain. You can move these stones on a flat plane, but how do you get them up?
Of course.
But here's the difference. In ancient times, it wasn't just Wally Wellington. It was an entire industry of these people
Wally
trying to
Wellingtons.
figure these things out over the
Yeah.
course of hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So if you had 50 Wally Wellingtons for 500 years, you would build the pyramids.
Yes.
For sure.
This is what Benedetto was saying, my buddy, about it. It's just like, when you have the smartest people have one singular focus. Like right now, the smartest people are probably running fucking hedge funds, developing AI, bombing everywhere. And instead, they're just worrying about how do we get this heavy shit over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing that's interesting here is, do you see some of the places where the stone has chipped off?
No.
Yeah.
Like that little
You can kinda
section
see it.
right there?
Yeah, where it's almost like a part of it was scraped away or it was brittle and it broke off. You can tell. So what's really interesting is that this is gray andesite. Gray andesite doesn't just chip off. It's not like chert or something like that. It doesn't just chip away. So one of the things that my mentor, Dr. Ed Barnhart, thinks, and there are other people who think this maybe because of him. So south of Peru, in Chile, in the Atacama Desert, there are these Inca and the empire that was before the Inca called the YERRR. They were creating these roads that go off into the desert and then they just fade off into the desert and they end there. The roads don't pick up again further south. So
This is the desert that leads into the ocean? It's this
I'm
one?
not sure if the
mistaken?
Atacama Desert leads into the ocean.
It's in Chile, right?
But it's definitely near the ocean. Yeah, the Atacama Desert might be northern Chile a little bit. I've never actually been there.
Yeah, okay.
But the roads lead into the desert, and they don't pick up again further south. They just stop in the desert. So they were doing something out there. Well, one of the things that's out there are these acid deposits, these natural acid deposits, and the Peruvians had ceramics that you could hold the acid inside of, like the ceramic would not be eaten away by the acid, so you could essentially harvest it. This is just a theory, and at the site of Tiwanaku, which is in Bolivia, which is the place. It's this primordial place that existed long before the Inca Empire that the Inca were clearly inspired by. There are stories there that the acid from birds' mouths and acid was used to melt the stone or soften,
shape it, yeah.
to soften the stone, yeah. And so a lot of people will get this confused with geopolymer, where you're mixing concrete, but that's not what's happening here. What I think it is that they are, they've got some metal tools. I forget if it's copper, if it's bronze chisels. They've got some metal tools, but they're not that efficient. But you can smash apart the stones, right? You can get a rough shape. But if you want to get the exact shape,
precision, you need to soften it.
You soften the stones. And one of the other things that you can do is you can get this rough shape, and you can if you soften the top of one stone and the bottom of another,
they'll start to blend into one another.
You just place one stone on top of the other, and it'll flatten itself and become perfectly flat. And how you do the mechanics of that, gosh, I couldn't really begin to approach. But
how old is this?
Well, nobody really knows. I mean, we
estimate.
Yeah.
We're talking about thousands of years.
Well, what's cool is they're actually about to do a core sample beneath the site of Sacsayhuaman in Cusco, and we're going to know for sure, without a doubt. Yeah, this is something that's been highly debated forever. A lot of people say, well, this has to be antediluvian, 12,000 years old.
12,000 years old.
People say that. My guess is at most a couple thousand. I would
okay, so
wow.
but
you were telling me that there's like a story, like lore amongst the people from anthologies written hundreds of years ago, where if you asked them where the stones came from, they'd be like, the stones were always here.
That's true too. So there's evidence of habitation at Cusco going back to which Cusco is the seat of the Inca world.
I got you. Right here.
There you go. So Cusco is the seat of the Inca world. It sits at like 12,500 feet. Incredibly like protected, isolated, natural environment. And so it's a great place to live. The ground's very fertile. There's rolling hills. It's a nice, very nice place. The weather's great. And so there's evidence of people living there. It's either 2000 or 4000 BC was some of the earliest evidence that they found of little like campsites and stuff of people living out there. Now, there's this period before the Inca Empire called the Kingdom of Cusco. And we don't really know exactly when it begins. We know that I think they expanded to an empire around 800 AD, according to their oral history that they told the Spaniards, right? But the Spaniards, when they're walking around, gosh, why I always forget the name of this temple, but there's a, I'm looking at the photo of it right now, actually.
Which one? Which image?
It's the one with the girl standing in front of that corner of the building.
That 12 angle.
Yeah. For some reason, I am forgetting the name of this building, but it's this building right here that the Spaniards are walking around in the 1500s, talking to the Inca, and they're asking him, "How did you guys build these walls?" And gosh, I can't believe I can't think of the name of this temple. What does it say? Palace of Inca Roca. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So, so they're walking around this palace, and the Spaniards asked them, "How did you guys build these stones? Like, what did you do?" And they were told by the Inca, "Well, this place was built by the gods. This was here."
Which would imply that the Inca stumbled upon it, maybe tried to continue building it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the Inca, but isn't there some evidence of a lesser masonry done on top of certain structures that existed?
Well, and that's kind of
maybe you can formulate my sentence a little better.
Yeah. So one of the things that you see a lot is that you'll see this lower level that's really sophisticated architecture.
The megalithic
stones. And then on top of it, you'll have this, what people call like Inca construction, which is just rubble, like crudely formed rubble packed together, sometimes with like cement or mortar between the stones to get the stones to like stick together. That's not always the case. It's kind of like it's a tough argument for people to make because if you go to Machu Picchu and if you look at the architecture of Machu Picchu and you think like, well, maybe the Inca came and found this and they built on top of it, whatever. When you go around that entire city, there's actually only 2 buildings there that are made out of the megalithic stone. The rest of it is in that mortar. And so it's like, okay, well, did this pre-civilization come out here and just build these 2 buildings way out here up on top of this mountain? Maybe they did. Well, then, we have to come up with a theory of, well, why did they, what is the actual purpose of that? Of course, there's never actually a theory that's proposed. It's just, with some of this stuff, it kind of sits in mystery. People like to talk about the mystery, but don't actually want to come up with a reason to like expand on that, right?
The mystery is really fun.
And the mystery is fun and it sells, right?
Yes.
Trying to explain the mystery doesn't always sell.
Yeah.
Which is sort of a big thing in my space.
What's up, people? World's fastest ad reads, all right? I'm going to New York City Sesh Comedy Club April 3rd. That is going to be my show. It's going to be me, a bunch of other comedians, magicians, musicians, who knows? It's going to be awesome, and I'll see you guys there. And then I'm going to be hitting the road throughout the year, specifically at the end of the year. Plano, Texas, Chandler, Arizona, Pasadena, California, San Diego, and Detroit. I can't wait to see you guys there. Come out, shake my hand, take a pic, and come enjoy some stand-up comedy.
There's tons of stuff that I will say about the ancient world where I'll say, I don't think it's that way. I still think it's amazing. Like here's the big thing. The evidence.
I love this stuff, Luke.
The evidence.
I love it all. I love it all. I love it all.
Well,
keep going. This is great.
As disappointing as it is to most of the ancient history space, the evidence is overwhelming that the dynastic Egyptians themselves built pyramids.
The dynastic Egyptians themselves.
Yeah,
so these are the people that existed in Egypt at the time.
Yeah, so let's say the dynastic Egyptians would be 3100 BC to the death of Cleopatra in 30 BC. That's the dynastic period. And
you would posit that the dynastic Egyptians also built the pyramids down into Sudan.
Well, no, so that's those are the Nubians, the Kushites.
So the Nubians and Kushites had their own. There's no like exchange of information, technology.
Huge exchange. They
were influencing one another.
So the Nubians were getting beat up so much by the Egyptians for thousands of years. There's no gold in Egypt. All of the gold comes from the Kushite mines, like down in the Nubian world. So all the pharaohs would ride down there in these like yearly or annual raids. They take all the gold. Of course, they would do this in the Levant too, like out in Mesopotamia. And then they would do these raids where they gather up all the gold and the loot and bring it back to Egypt. So I think it's like maybe in the 900s or 800s BC, maybe the 700s BC, the Nubians, while Egypt is like falling apart, the Nubians, who are so familiar with Egyptian culture, which they've been colonized by it for thousands of years, they actually march forward, take over Egypt, and then for 5 generations, you have Nubian black pharaohs ruling over Egypt, and they're more Egyptian than the Egyptians had been for hundreds of years.
Why are they more Egyptian?
Yeah. They just go back to the old ways. Ways.
Make Egypt great again.
Yeah. So they made Egypt great again. Yeah. So
what a story.
And then eventually they're overthrown again. But anyway,
why is there not a lot of conversation about the pyramids in Sudan? Aren't there more pyramids in Sudan than there are in Egypt?
Yeah, I think that might be right. I think in Sudan there should be around 200 or more pyramids, and then in Egypt you're looking at like 127 to 140. But some of them were completely quarried. So they have this foundation of a pyramid, but they don't actually know if that was like a pyramid. If that makes sense. So
it's also probably British archaeology plus Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the biggest ones are in Egypt, so naturally they're going to get the credit for it.
Yeah.
And when you say completely quarried, meaning there was a pyramid structure that was there, and then those stones were removed to build whatever. Wow.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, kind of like lost in history. You never hear much conversation about it.
Yeah.
And whenever I talk to somebody Sudanese and I bring up the pyramids, I say, why don't we hear about the pyramids? There's always this reaction. It's like, thank you. Can you talk about this, please? It'd be really nice.
I think a big thing is how stable Sudan is. Like I was down.
So you can't evoke your history. You can't evoke your past if you don't have enough stability to maintain control.
People can't go see it.
Yeah. Oh, that's also true.
They really should do. They really should do something because it's not. It shouldn't be that hard. Like if you're down in South Egypt, I was down in Abu Simbel, and which is the place where you have the 4 giant statues of Pharaoh Ramses carved into the mountainside.
Unbelievable.
Did you go see that?
No, I didn't make it down to what is that area called where you see the majority of the pyramids in Egypt?
The Kings. Valley of the Kings?
Valley of the Kings, which is in
Luxor.
Yeah, I didn't make it down to Luxor.
Yeah.
But
really?
No, I was there for 3 days or 4 days or something like that.
Have you ever been to Egypt?
No.
My mom went.
We should do an Egypt trip.
Dude, that would be it.
Luxor is the place.
No, I believe it. But what I would love to see is Alexandria too. But that's just for ancient European remnants and cool. Wait, why'd your eyes light up on that
face
one?
lit up?
Yeah, Alexandria, that's my expertise in ancient Egypt.
Really?
I know more about Alexandria than I do.
Luke, we're just getting cooking.
Yeah.
I love this stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just wrapping up the thing about the pyramids.
Yes.
Yeah, the evidence is so overwhelming of when the pyramids were built, and we don't. I know you talked about pyramids a lot on this. That even Graham Hancock has come around and said that he knows it's a product of the reign of Khufu in the Old Kingdom.
Right.
So I mean, people can go look into that, and it's disappointing. But it does not. It does nothing, not at all. It does not minimize the insane achievement
Right.
of the pyramids.
Right.
How they were constructed, still nobody knows.
Right.
It's way easier to date something than it is to figure out
Explain it.
how it was created,
Yeah.
why it was created, and what it was used for. And those are the real juicy bits there.
I mean, it's a testament to the achievement that people are going, it must have been something that happened in previous generations or like a period of time in history, 12,000, 20,000 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
theys no way people, what would that be, 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years?
Yeah, 4,500.
4,000 years could have done this. Yeah, why'd your eyes light up at Alexandria? Why do you marvel at Alexandria?
It's the height of the ancient world. There is no, if you're a time traveler.
Explain Alexandria in Egypt to the people
Yeah. So
listening, watching.
So ancient Egyptians, let's say during the time of the pyramids, they are isolationists. The reason that Egypt becomes so powerful is because it's not connected to the rest of the ancient world. You have to cross these vast deserts to get there, or you have to go through the swampy Nile Delta to be able to penetrate into ancient Egypt. And then the Nile itself is naturally inundated. So it brings this fertile topsoil like every year when it inundates, and it creates I think it was Herodotus that had a great saying that he was saying.
Yeah.
He said, God, what is
When
it?
the Nile something,
He said something like Egypt is a gift of the Nile. It's something like that, where essentially the Nile River itself created ancient Egypt. All of the monumental structures that you see and all the wealth that they had was because the river just gave all that.
Unbelievable. Like every time it would overflow or whatever that's called with a river, like the fertility of the grounds was just something. You could grow anything there. So they were plentiful with food. It was very hard to attack.
That's right.
So you basically have this like ideal situation for passivity and thought.
That's right.
You can't really sit around and think if you're being attacked every 5 minutes from all different angles, right? Which is, I'm sure, like what also probably helped the Incas. It's like if we're going to create this thing at the top of this mountain, nobody's really going to come attack us up here.
That earliest city in Central America, El Mirador, in the middle of the jungle and nowhere. So that's why these civilizations start, because they're isolated.
Also, if you want to know like how difficult it is to really pass through the jungle without doing it in a trip to the Amazon, go to Costa Rica and just drive from one town to the next.
Yeah.
And you will, we're talking about 2026, Costa Rica. I don't even think they have an army because they're just like, who's invading?
Yeah.
It's one road. It's so dense.
Yeah.
And like the jungle almost overtakes it almost goes from, there's barely beach is what I'm trying to say. Like you could see the trees almost like creeping out towards the water.
Yeah.
Like that's how powerful and potent the jungle is when it's just, not like held back. There's those cool like Elizabethan mansions that were constructed. I believe it was like in the Congo during Belgian rule. Was it in the Congo? I don't know. And like they made these beautiful mansions during this like horrible colonial time, and the jungle has just consumed them.
Really?
Like trees growing through them. And it's just relentless if you don't keep it back.
Yeah.
So like that is protection in of itself, and you see why people went into the jungles.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about Alexandria?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was talking to a historian that says he doesn't think that the Library of Alexandria, which held so much of the ancient
Here we go.
so
Luke.
much of the
Get
ancient
cooking,
world knowledge.
Luke.
He was saying that perhaps it never burned down, and that it actually just eroded from the elements, intellectual decay, invasion.
He's saying that it never burned down? Like he really said that?
That there's a part of it that burned down, but perhaps the burning was more of a metaphorical burning.
Yeah. Well, see, that's kind of the thing is you could talk to an Egyptologist who specializes in the 18th dynasty, like as a lot of them do. That's like the golden age of ancient Egypt, where you have all your iconic pharaohs that you know the names of, other than Ramses. He's 19th dynasty. But and he may be like speaking off the cuff about Alexandria and just kind of posing an idea that's popular among scholars. But it's surprising that any scholars say that it didn't burn down, because it's in the primary sources that it burned down like 3 or 4 times. So
Who burned it down?
well, it starts with so we're getting into some Roman stuff here. And when it comes to the Mediterranean world, Egypt and Greece is my thing. When you get into the Roman world, it's a whole other realm. But I believe that it first starts with Julius Caesar is chasing his rival Pompey across the Mediterranean Pompey is fleeing from Rome to Alexandria. And Pompey, in Rome, basically the armies were made up by like really rich guys who would take up like a portion of the Roman Empire, right? So you have like these unofficial mini emperors or like nomarchs that sort of run shit. And so these two rivals, as they do, chasing each other, they're at war with each other. Julius Caesar's chasing Pompey down into the Mediterranean. And I believe that when Pompey is trying to flee the city of Alexandria, his military boats were brought up to the port that was connected to the library. And so Caesar ordered for the docks to be burned, to burn the boats so that Pompey's guys couldn't flee. So essentially when you landed in Alexandria, your boat would be boarded by city officials, Ptolemaic soldiers, or sometimes at certain points they were Roman soldiers because this was like the beginning of the fall of ancient Egypt. But eventually Ptolemaic rule, which is the Greek dynasty that's ruling over Egypt, after Alexander conquers, Alexander dies, his best friend Ptolemy becomes pharaoh of Egypt, and then his line all the way down to Cleopatra for the next 300 years rules over Egypt from the city of Alexandria. So the Ptolemaic power starts dwindling, so they reach out to Rome and start hiring essentially like Roman military backing, and that's kind of the foot into the door for the Romans to start conquering Egypt from the inside. That's the beginning of the end for Egypt. But essentially, your boat would be boarded by city officials, and they would essentially scour your boat, or just ask you, be like, okay, what writing do you have with you? What documents did you bring? They'd look over your documents. If it was something valuable that they didn't have, they would bring that into the library. They would copy it down. They would give you the copy, and then they would keep the original.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and
so you have the original source material of everybody that passes through that city.
And so this is something that I'd love to see Wes Huff talk about this, but there's something that's here that's called, I've heard it informally referred to as the Library Wars. But you had like the Library of Alexandria, the Library of Babylon, the Library of Pergamum, I believe, up on the Turkish coast. I believe that's where that city is. And so you had all these cities essentially warring against each other, trying to get original source material and the oldest documents. And so in the city of Alexandria, you had so much knowledge of the ancient world all in one place. I mean, when I was chatting with when I was on Joe's show, we were going through something that was written by, I believe it was written by one of the Ptolemies. It was a 2nd century BC document that was being referenced by like a 1st century AD document. But we found out on the show, I like called out the date. I was like, look at that. So we looked into it, and essentially on the show, even though this is probably known by some scholars, but we found another document that was being referenced that doesn't exist anymore, that was definitely destroyed or existed in Alexandria.
So proof of destruction.
Yeah. So, and there's all kinds of stories like that. Like the greatest biography that was written about Alexander the Great, from his most trusted advisor, Ptolemy himself, who becomes the first Ptolemaic pharaoh of Egypt. He wrote this whole biography of his own life and an account of Alexander's life, and that did not survive. It did not survive the period of Alexandria, but it's referenced by other authors later on. So we know that it used to exist, and there's all kinds of.
Why this obsession with Alexandria? Why was Alexander obsessive? Why did he want to, bring his dynasty, and why was it so important to him that this existed there? What is special about this place?
Well, so for Alexander, I don't actually know if Alexandria itself in Egypt was as important to him as it would be to later people, because there's a joke that if you study classics, which is the Greco-Roman Egyptian world, there's a joke where they'll say name 10 classical cities, and you can say Alexandria because there's 10 Alexandrias.
So anywhere he goes,
and anywhere he goes, he builds a lot of Alexandrias. But the one that stuck was Egypt, and so Alexander, there's this great story of when he's conquering the Persian realm. Okay, so he's 23 years old or 25 years old. He leaves Macedonia right here. Persia's beating up on the Greeks for, let me see, he's I guess around like 325 BC or 323 BC. He sets out. It's somewhere around there, or maybe it's earlier than that. 331 is when he arrives in Egypt. It's something like that. But anyways, so this crazy 23-year-old, 25-year-old kid takes on the Persian Empire, marches through in these 3 very important battles, pushes the Persians back. Eventually, he wants to march to Babylon, but he shouldn't do that until he turns west and goes and captures Egypt, because Egypt is known as the breadbasket of the Mediterranean, because all the grain and the food to feed, at many points, to feed most of the Eastern Mediterranean came out of Egypt.
So if you secure the food and the grain, then you can actually
turn around
campaign.
and go stomp Babylon. And so he goes and captures Egypt, and he eventually goes to Memphis. He must have seen the pyramids, although maybe that was in Ptolemy's account. What Alexander walking around the pyramids and looking at them, maybe that was in Ptolemy's account. But eventually, Alexander wants to go to the northern port, because the book that exists in the back of the Greek mind, all Greeks, their sacred biblical text essentially is Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, the story of Troy, right? And so in that book, in the Odyssey, which maybe we'll even see a scene of this in this new movie, when Odysseus is essentially being like kicked around the Eastern Mediterranean, he lands on an island or a little port town on the northern coast of Egypt. And I think as the story goes, I forget exactly how it goes in the Odyssey, but he asks the people, where am I? And they say, you're on Pharos. And so maybe that means maybe that means this is Pharaoh's land. Maybe that means this is the Pharaoh's island. But it was called Pharos. So Alexander, being this huge fan of that great story, and just a kid, he's 23 or 25, and he's like, I'm gonna go find Pharos. So he goes to northern Egypt. Now the Egyptians, they don't like the water. There are not really that many Egyptian cities that are on this northern coast of the Mediterranean. They like to be pushed further back. This is another thing we think of the Egyptians as like riding these camels through the desert or whatever. The Egyptians did not want anything to do with hanging around in the Mediterranean or being in the desert. This isn't even ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt is just the river and like a mile on each side of the river where it's green and tropical. That's where the Egyptians lived. They didn't like the desert because that's where the roaming barbarians hung out. And, if you wandered out in the desert, you were going to get killed. So you needed to live literally on the Nile. On the Nile.
Yes,
that was your whole world.
And this is most civilizations.
This is, it's
very few
a lot of
civilizations choose to develop in like
you're going to be near your life source.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And so,
but it is, the perception is kind of odd. There's like a...
They had rigid borders and a control agency.
But Alexander, he comes from a civilization of sea people. Because ancient Greece, we look at Greece as this little peninsula that sticks out right here.
Right?
But yes, it's actually the coastlines and the isles.
Yeah.
So ancient Greece is not this, it's this.
Yeah.
It's all these little islands right here and like some of the coastal areas. And so that was the Greek world. And so Greeks really like water, and they like defensive positions with water.
Right.
So when he's in northern Egypt, he sees, I think it's the Lake of Marios or something like that. But there's this little band that basically connects to the Mediterranean, and then it's fortified by a lake behind it. So it's this little band of land, and he looks at it and he's like, this is where a city needs to be, because you can
now have a natural border to protect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he hops off of his horse and he's looking for like chalk or something, but he doesn't have any chalk to make a city layout. So he goes and grabs some grain out of a saddlebag, throws the grain in the dirt, and then Alexander himself, by his own hand, laid out the initial like core city plan. And he had an architect, I forget the architect's name, but he had an architect like jump down with him, and they lay it out so that the breeze will like sweep through the city. And he says, I want the roads to be 100 feet wide, or something equivalent to that. He wants this to be a grand city. So he lays it all out. And then as soon as he lays it all out, this flock of seabirds like swoop down and they devour all the grain in front of him. And he, ancient people are very superstitious. And so he thought that was a bad omen. And he was like, maybe I shouldn't build this city here or whatever. And one of his guys like reassured him, no. This means that this city is going to feed many nations, or it's going to feed many people. So Alexander gets back on his horse. leaves his architect and a group of people behind. They start construction on the
Isn't
city.
history fun when you can make it up after?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what a story, right?
And yeah, exactly. So Alexander, he has to leave. He's got to go to a place in the western desert called Siwa, where he's going to be essentially like proclaimed the son of Amun-Ra, and he's going to be proclaimed pharaoh. He never goes back to Alexandria. He goes and conquers Babylon. Then he tries to push into India, and he eventually dies in Babylon at like 32 or 33. But Alexandria lives on without him. Ptolemy, his best friend, they divide up Alexander's massive empire. Like, think about this, dude.
Do they bring his body back to Alexandria?
Ptolemy went and stole it. So I think that his body was going to go back to Macedonia.
Yes.
So they were going to take his body from wherever Babylon is, if it's in Iraq or Iran. I don't know. So they're going to take his body back. They got to go up through Anatolia, modern day Turkey. And so Ptolemy sends out an expedition, and they go and capture his body, and then they bring his body back.
And what is the significance of that? People would pay homage to the body.
Exactly. Yeah. You're able to. So think about this from Ptolemy's standpoint. All of a sudden, this dude who's best friends with this king. Think about this for a second.
Like a political move, you're saying?
Kind of, yeah. So, and just from a life perspective, like imagine this guy's life. Okay, you grow up, you're lucky enough to be best friends with the son of this minor Greek kingdom. But you're kind of an outsider in ancient Greece. Like the Macedonians are in northern Greece, and they're kind of discriminated against by the Athenians and the Spartans.
They're getting bullied their whole lives.
Yeah, they're getting bullied by them.
Nothing's changed.
So you're this.
Shout out to Macedonians.
So not only
respect.
do you live in this like sort of Greek kingdom, and you're kind of discriminated against by the rest of the Greek world, but you're not like a peasant, but I mean, you're just friends with this like minor prince, right?
Yeah.
And then so the prince's father is killed, and then he's elevated to king. And the prince's father conquered a lot of Greece, like got them on the side of the Macedonians, like changed a lot politically.
Philip II.
Philip II. And then you see your like, you see your 20-something-year-old friend be like, I'm going to go to war against the Persians. We're going to go to war against them. And so you're right there with this dude the whole time. And you watch this guy take over the biggest empire that the world has ever seen. And you're right there with your buddy the entire time. You go see him become crowned pharaoh out in the western deserts of Egypt.
This is what Steve Witkoff is hoping for right now.
And Ptolemy, his main fascination, along with Alexander, something they bonded over, was their fascination of ancient Egypt. Because Egypt was, by 300 BC, Egypt has fallen off. Like the pyramids are more than 2,000 years old. I mean, it's just, it's this deep primordial time that nobody remembers or really understands anymore. So you're fascinated by it. And then you march out here and you conquer Babylon and you move into Turkey, blah, blah, blah. But then he dies. All of a sudden, you've gone from this like minor noble in this obscure little kingdom up here
to the king of the world.
Alexander has left you in charge of Egypt, and all of a sudden you have to be the pharaoh of Egypt itself.
Kind of crazy.
So Ptolemy, the officials that live in Egypt and the civilians there, they know that Ptolemy isn't the great chosen warlord that Alexander was. That's right.
You need the body.
That's why you need the body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of political moves that you've got to pull here. Now, this is the thing that makes Alexandria so amazing. Ptolemy and his son and his grandson, those are known as the great Ptolemies. All the ones after that, it becomes Game of Thrones. Like it's really a show should be made about it. But so the first three Ptolemies, they have to convince the Egyptians that they are worthy of being pharaoh, right? And then
they're outsiders that have been placed here by this, masterful engineer of war and conquering, but he's no longer alive. And that was your connectivity to power. So that power is gone. Why should we trust you?
Not to mention, wasn't the entire Greek world very sort of hierarchical? And it was all secession based off of like dynasty. And from my understanding, like Ptolemy was seen as like.
What do you mean by that, Mark?
Like it was just like. Your dad was the king, so now you're the king, then your son will be king.
Right.
And it's just all passed through bloodline. And Ptolemy was one of the first people that was very meritocratic, where like Alexander loved him and was like, you're a beast. And even though you come from like a fine sort of military family, I'm going to elevate you to this high political status purely based off your merit, which was never done.
Yeah,
I mean, is that roughly the story?
Greece is very diverse. Like as far as the way that their politics go, you know, in Athens, the idea of people governing themselves was born in. I don't know. It was when they got the tyrants out. I think it was in the 600s BC or the 500s BC. So they had kings, and then they had tyrants, which is like a political king, but not like a, you know, not the same thing. And then they formed the Athenian democracy. And then some other places follow suit with this idea of democracy and people ruling over themselves. But the Macedonians held on to this traditional sort of medieval, you know, I guess this is pre-medieval, right? You know, they sort of held on to this royal bloodline succession. And then Sparta had kings, even though it's different. They would have like 2 kings. So the Greek world is like super divided. This is why there was never really much of a Greek empire, because the Greeks could never like fully come together.
That was kind of, my understanding from even talking to people. I'm talking to people when I'm in Turkey.
Yeah.
So obviously they're going to be biased. There's, you know, some historical beef. But what the guide that I had was telling me is that like Greek was just a dominant culture. Like wherever it existed, that became the language, and people wanted to embody it for whatever reason. So our idea of a Greek empire isn't like they're all these interconnected states that were maybe as interwoven as like Rome was, but kind of like different nation states that all spoke a language and shared a culture.
Like
Spartans
cultures permeating across.
Culture was the valuable thing. So even if you were living in Turkey at the time, my understanding was, and I could be completely wrong with this, but like even when Constantinople falls and Istanbul is there, they're still speaking Greek.
Oh, maybe they are. That's
much later.
Time.
This is what is it? 15? No, the fall. When is the Ottoman Empire take over? 1500?
I can't say.
I don't know either.
But we diverted you.
Yeah, go.
In Egypt.
Yeah. So
this guy went from like a lowly dude to now being pharaoh.
So he's got to come up with these public projects to, well, one, you want the regular people to be happy with you. If you're a ruler and all the citizens hate you,
and you're an outsider,
you're gonna have a revolution.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a revolt of some kind, and you don't want to do that. It's not like you can't really just rule people with an iron fist forever. Right. They will rise up and cut your head off. So Ptolemy was actually inspired by Alexander. He actually wanted to be a good ruler. So he had this, you know, this genuine, genuine nature about him as a ruler. Now, certainly he's still a ruler, did bad things, whatever. All the ancient rulers did. But so he has to create these public projects in Alexandria, which is now the new capital. The capital has moved from, the religious capital was Luxor. The economic capital was Cairo or Memphis. Well, he's moved all of it now to Alexandria. All of it is out there. There's still a lot of stuff going on down in the south. Ptolemies are still building temples down there, but mainly the heart of Egypt is at Alexandria. And Alexandria is a really, really advantageous place because when Alexander took over so much of this world, a lot of those ports became connected to Alexandria, and Alexandria became the center of trading across the Mediterranean and out into the Indian Ocean. So they're filthy, filthy rich. So essentially, the Ptolemies take all this money and they start these two primary projects. One, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, if you guys are familiar with this. The second one, the Library of Alexandria. It's going to be the center of knowledge of all of the ancient world. And there were other projects that they started, but those are the two primary ones. I feel like there's one right now that I'm just blanking out on. Now, what's really interesting here is Ptolemy gathers his architects, like probably native Egyptian architects, and we have a lot of evidence that scholars in the Library of Alexandria were going and studying the pyramids and studying the obelisks. They were studying ancient Egypt during ancient Egypt, right? And so the Greek Alexandrian scholars are very fascinated by these marvels that are just sitting quietly out in the deserts for thousands of years, right? Like they want to go study the geometry and how they were created and things like that. The idea that the Earth is a sphere was discovered in Alexandria by Eratosthenes, I believe. And so what's really interesting is for the first time, perhaps since the pyramids were built, can't think of other examples. For the first time since the pyramids were built, megalithic architecture using red Aswan granite, down from Aswan, same granite that's used in the Valley Temple next to the Sphinx, the same granite that's used in the King's Chamber, is employed again in architecture on the same scale. So the ancient sources tell us, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria was built so well that it fell the year before Columbus arrived in the Americas. I'm pretty sure it's very, very, very close.
So how long is that?
It's set for. It must have stood for 1,600 years or so, or 1,700 years or something like that. But there were travelers throughout antiquity, like let's say the late ancient times, medieval, dark ages, are traveling to Egypt and seeing it, and they see it like slowly decay, but they describe the materials that were used to build it, and they say that there were 65-ton red granite stones that were used to build the lighthouse, and we have some dimensions of it, and the blocks are just sitting in the water today. If you go to Alexandria, like another his friend who's a historian, who's a Roman historian, he and I went and looked, and there's these massive stones sitting out there. And they say that the library was this huge stone building made out of, like, the greatest marble and granite that could be quarried, or that could be gathered. And the lighthouse itself was within just a few feet of being the same height of the Great Pyramid. So it's the Ptolemies showing the people of Egypt, we're going back.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
And that's how you get the people hyped.
Yeah.
It's like, this is going to be the heyday, and we're running it right back, and the entire world is going to come here the same way they came 1,000 years, 2,000 years ago.
And it was the single greatest city ever built in the ancient world, arguably. Rome at no point would have ever had the kind of magnificence that Alexandria had. No. I mean, Rome had a lot of great public monuments, but if you walk outside of your apartment building, you immediately step in horse shit. You're walking around in the mud. And Rome was extremely dirty, like busy place. It honestly would have been magnificent to like most people.
Sure.
But if you were an Alexandrian and you went and visited Rome, you'd be like, man, this place is a freaking dump.
And what happened to the lighthouse?
The lighthouse, I believe that in like 1490 or 1491, it's very, very close to that year. There was an earthquake and the whole thing came down. And, well, maybe there were earthquakes over time, but at some point there was a decision made to quarry and level the entire thing and turn it into. It's now like a castle. It's like a port castle now. I forget exactly.
Can we see the stones in the water?
Yeah, you may be able to find. Yeah, so that's what it was turned into today.
Oh, it was built on an island?
Yeah, so it's built on the island of Pharos.
Oh, great.
Yeah, exactly. So
you're getting all that stone from a quarry somewhere into the
Aswan.
water. You're getting it from Aswan, which is like southern Egypt.
Yeah, it's about 700 something miles away.
Bringing it up the Nile, bringing it across the water, right? Because there's what is the distance? A kilometer or something like that?
You have to bring it, you would have to bring it all the way up the Nile, up into the Delta, following the rivers out of the Delta.
Into the Mediterranean?
Into the Mediterranean, and kind of sail around the city, pull up to the island, and then unload the blocks.
And the idea was the first thing a ship is going to see as they approach the greatest city in modern civilization at the time is this massive megalithic structure on an island.
Yeah,
it's awe-inspiring. You're like, how could you do this?
It's the world's first lighthouse, right? It's just this beacon that you could see that showed you where this calm water port was, and I believe it was a giant bronze mirror with like a statue of Poseidon in it, and I think it would spin, but it would stay constantly burning, and so at night you'd see this torch off in the distance, and so you pull up. And then so once you made port, then you would make port on the back side of Alexandria's library. So you'd see this huge public library in front of you. Yeah.
Flex.
And then they would come in and they'd take all of your valuable knowledge, right? Like they're probably not taking like petty documents, but they're taking all your important documents and copying them down. And then you would walk into the city. I think it was called Soma Road and Canopic Way. And so when you entered into the city, if you didn't come in from a side gate or whatever, but if you entered in the primary way that the city was designed, especially for like political figures, like the first time some king or something is brought in from say Cyprus, like a Cypricot. Say a Cyprus king is brought into Alexandria on a royal visit. He's gonna be given the royal tour. He's gonna go underneath the lighthouse and he's gonna look at this massive tower that doesn't look like anything else. That's the other thing you got to think. There isn't anything else like that in their world.
Yeah.
I mean, there is amazing architecture, but that is something completely different. This massive tower with this burning flame on top of it. Exactly. So he's going to come in this port a little bit, let's say up to the where you see that dock kind of coming down the middle. That might, of course, they draw these in all different types of ways.
The dock that he's on right now?
To the right, far to the right. Up a little bit.
Oh, just go to the middle of the image.
Up in the center.
Center of the image.
Yeah. So that might be the main dock. Diagrams of Alexandria are drawn in so many different ways. But you would pull up to that dock. You'd walk down it. You may or may not enter the library, but you might walk around it, and then you would be on Soma Road or Canopic Way. But it's the main two streets that go down the center of the city. Now, on your right side, you would have, let's say theoretically, on your right side, you would have the Library of Alexandria. Right next to that would be a place called the Museon, which was, so the library is a library, but the Museon is a university. So that's where all of your, all of your scholars would be getting other people who want to study. They get together, they run experiments, they're teaching things. And then connected to that would be like lecture hall after lecture hall after lecture hall. There's a place in modern day, if you go to Egypt, you can go to Alexandria and see a portion of the library still there. It's called Kom El Dika.
How do you spell it?
KOMELDIKKA. And you can see some of the lecture halls these are from later periods, but these would have connected to the overall campus of Alexandria. So you'd walk down these alleyways that are covered up. So you see these little pillars that are standing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There were huge sort of half circular awnings stone awnings and wood awnings that would sit over that. So everywhere you would go would be fully shaded. This was not out in the open. There was a whole roof over this that would allow natural light in. So you can walk around the whole city, and the campus itself kind of spread across a large part of the central city. But in Alexandria itself, you'd see scholars like coming and going and people learning.
Why was there such a priority put on the scholarly activities? Why was education so sought after or rewarded? And did this exist in other parts of or other major cities during antiquity?
Oh yeah. This is just the culmination of centuries of this beginning. It really begins with the pre-Socratic philosophers in ancient Greece. So like Athens. So pre-Socratic means all the scholars before Socrates. Socrates wasn't really a scholar. He was more like a hobo that was super, really smart and thoughtful guy. But it's this idea of pondering your own existence and pondering reality and thinking about like, how does a man master himself and what is the purpose of my existence? And what is the reality of nature itself? What is nature? What is my nature? This all started in Athens, pretty much.
Yeah.
And really explodes during about 450 BC. There's this classical Athenian period that's framed by two wars. You've got the Persian Wars, and then you've got the Peloponnesian Wars. Right. The Persian Wars is actually the first Persian Wars, where like Leonidas is standing.
This is the Sparta, Thermopylae?
Yeah. This is at Thermopylae. Yeah, the stand at Thermopylae. That's the Persian Wars.
300.
Where the Greeks repel the Persians. And then that causes this explosion of Greek identity and thought and imagination and philosophy. And there's so much. It's the birth of comedy itself happens right after that. The first stand-up comics in the world are in Athens, in the theater of Athens in Greece. And it was such a separation from the ancient world that existed before that. It was the only time where you had these people who were not ruled over by a king. They're ruled over by politicians who are elected, or maybe they assassinate all their political rivals and they become elected. But they could... Everyone, you would announce when there would be a show. There'd be some, you'd go watch plays like all day long. Some of them would be an actual theatrical play. Some of them would be like a comedy stand-up thing. This was big in Alexandria. They would have comics like stand up and just rip on the Emperor of Rome like all day long. And people get together and just say the most heinous jokes about the Emperor of Rome. And the word would get back to the emperor, and he'd come down and just slaughter like 20,000 people. Yeah, because of
cancel culture, bro.
Cancel culture.
Yeah, but
we're doing all right.
In Athens, you could stand out in the theater, and you could everybody would wear a mask and a robe, so you wouldn't like quite know who is saying what, and so you could stand out there and you could make jokes criticizing your own politicians to their face as they're sitting in the crowd, and have the whole crowd erupt, and it's just this revolutionary way of thought in the ancient world that happens in Greece, and it spreads through there. So Alexandria is like the most powerful, wealthy culmination of all of that, where you have, it's gone from just like naturalistic philosophy of what is nature itself to categorizing philosophy to coming up with different genres of study, and then they're organized, and then, it becomes like similar to a modern day university. And so Alexandria is like, if you can have a university on this scale where this many people are literate and this intelligent, the separation between your power and even like the intellectual and psychological effect that it has on your contemporary neighbors, like people who are outside of Egypt, the effect that it has on their perception of you is immense, right? Like they see you as an intellectual giant compared to them.
So there's an intimidation factor that comes with it.
It's everything all in one, right? And so Alexandria is kind of the culmination of all of the great things of the ancient world, all arriving in one place. And one of the biggest things was that nearly the entire city was built out of stone itself. That was not a thing. Like if you go and you look at all the great temples that are in Egypt, if you go and look at all the great temples that are in Egypt, according to the ancient sources, like when Herodotus is visiting Egypt, whatever, the town, the city that exists around it, and all the thousands of people who live in the cities, it's really no more grand than just a poor village. Like all the normal people are building houses leaning up against these solid walls of the temple. But in Alexandria, the average quality of life is so much higher, and everyone's apartment buildings are all made out of stone. Like there's this famous saying that in Rome, there's no single time in Roman history where a part of the city wasn't burning down, because all of the apartment buildings, even during the height, let's say during the period of the 5 good emperors, which ends with Marcus Aurelius, Gladiator. That's the height of ancient Rome. A lot of people say, and it began with the Emperor Trajan. A lot of people say that the period of those 5 emperors is the happiest time in all of humanity. It's when the Roman Empire was the most stable. Okay, even then, the vast majority of the architecture in Rome was made out of wood, and the buildings would constantly just burn down. And like it was so common that Augustus, Rome's first emperor, had to create the world's first fire brigade to be watching out for fires to go like put them out. Alexandria didn't have to deal with this because the whole city was made out of stone.
All right, guys, let's take a break for a second. All right, we're all trying to feel healthy, right? Drinking more water, getting the steps in, taking our vitamins. But here's what most people miss. You got to look out for your liver, right? You're drinking every single day, probably. Okay? Drinking every single day, it's going to decimate that liver of yours. And the liver affects everything. Your energy, digestion, skin, even your metabolism. It's time we show it some love. How are you going to take care of your liver? Right here, Dose. Dose is going to take care for you. That's where Dose comes in. It's clinically backed liver supplement, but not a pill. It's a 2-ounce daily shot that tastes like fresh orange juice, 0 sugar, 0 junk, 0 calories. Your liver handles 500 plus functions a day. It's your body's filter, and when it's overworked, you feel sluggish, tired, and off. Dose helps cleanse your liver, support daily function, and can reduce midday crashes, boost metabolism, and improve your digestion. Plus, it's backed by 2 double-blind, placebo-controlled studies showing real results. Ready to give your liver the support it deserves, head to dosedaily.co/flagrant or enter flagrant to get 35% off your first subscription. Your body does so much for you. Let's do something for it. That's dosedaily.co/flagrant for 35% off your first month subscription. Now let's get back to the show. All right, guys, let's take a break for a second. Listen, boners. Spring coming, summer coming. You got to deliver in these months. There's no, cold weather excuse. You got to be there. Stand it up. Stand it up. Fill it out. You need to reorganize in there. And Blue Chew Gold is going to help you do that. They got the gold pack. It's different now. It's operating in 15 minutes or less. There's nothing else on the market like it. You want it ready to go in 15 minutes or less? That's nothing. That's foreplay. That's a conversation. That's a long bathroom break. That's whatever you need to get to that point where you can deliver. Okay? They got the ingredients I can tell you about for arousal and connection and all these other words that none of us even know what it means. 15 minutes or less, Blue Chew Gold. Simple as that. BlueChew.com. That's where you need to go. Okay? We got a special deal for our listeners right now. When you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the third for free. Promo code FLAGRANT. Promo code FLAGRANT. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. We thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. All right, before we get back with Luke, are y'all watching the March Madness at all?
Absolutely.
Yep. Who do you got? I guessed it last year. Let the record show.
You did not guess shit.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
I said who would win. I said Florida.
Yeah, you know it's a sin to lie, right?
We can pull up the tapes. If only I said this on a recorded platform. If only
There's
I said
no
this
way you guessed
You
it.
did not guess it.
Yes.
No, you didn't.
It was the championship game. And I
Oh,
thought
you
Florida,
guessed it at the
And
end.
who cares? Why does it matter when you guess it?
Well, because there's a 50% chance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Heaven forbid I have a little bit of sauce going on my side. You
Man,
guys don't want me
get
to
outta
win
here,
any money
man.
or to
Get outta
succeed in
here.
any way.
Get outta
UCF.
here.
Where's UCF at, Miles? Central Florida. Go Knights.
No, they're not in that shit
Nah, they
anymore.
were.
Kansas.
You think Kansas got it?
Kansas.
I don't even think Kansas is in it anymore. You know who I think got it, bro?
If you just say Arizona, I'm gonna just grab that chopstick.
I think Arizona got it, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So what makes you think that?
I don't know. To be honest, it's more of a gut. Like I just have a gut instinct that's telling me Arizona got it.
Really?
What do you think?
Yep. Kansas.
You think Kansas has got it?
Kansas.
Okay.
Well, can we scroll down a little more?
Back draw.
It looks
Yep.
like Kalshi's saying Arizona, Michigan, Duke, Houston, Purdue, Illinois, UConn.
Okay. So not
St.
even-
John's, isn't that a New York team?
Yeah, St. John's is in there.
Well, I mean, you're not going to show them any love at all?
No, I think Arizona got it.
No, that's what I meant by Kansas. I meant St. John's.
You meant Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So they got
Kansas
it.
lost.
What does Kalshi have?
St. John's.
Hold on. What does Kalshi have St. John's at?
3%.
All right. I kind of
This is
got to rock.
delusional New York.
Yeah, I gotta rock with
It
St.
should be
John's.
0%, but you guys are mentally ill enough to be like, no, we got it.
No, I got to rock with St. John's.
Where's
Yeah.
Florida? I don't
Well,
see
let's
it.
go down. It's somewhere in
No,
there.
I don't even know if you
Show
guys
us
got
where
a
Florida
team in the
is.
whole state.
Where's Florida, bro?
Florida lost to Iowa by 1 point.
See?
Like,
Yeah.
By a
shit.
point?
Sucker?
Shit.
Where's Iowa at?
Sucker? Sucker?
I hit my
Sucker?
ball. That ball was
Iowa's
perfectly.
less than 1% chance.
Nah.
I mean, they were the favorites when they played UCF, right? Is that what you meant? Where's UCF at?
Mark.
Whack.
Mark don't know shit about basketball, bro.
I do.
Yo.
I know stuff. Bam Adebayo, 83 points.
You should go for St. John. You Catholic.
Is that a Catholic school?
Yeah,
It's a
dude.
saint.
Do you know who St. John was?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Who?
St. John, he's an apostle. He wrote one of the Gospels. The
That's
last.
a different one.
No. The saint of. You don't even know
Lil
your
John.
shit.
What? I don't know what I was talking about. Look, St. John's pulling it off. I don't care if Kalshi has him at 3%. New York, it's down to 2%.
You need Luke Caverns.
The
to go-
second we
you
started
guys-
talking about it, went down a percent.
You need him to go discover the trophies for St. John's. Because they're lost. Anyway.
Damn, you bailed Alex
I know.
out.
Thank you.
I bailed Alex out. My
Can I
guy.
tell you
No
my
good deed, bro.
Yeah. I was
trying to-
No good deed.
My guy.
No,
I was gonna
You
say
just,
that.
are we being silly? Yo, are we being silly? Ethan?
Oh man, it's just so hard to joke for me
St. John's
lately.
got it. Okay.
Oh man, it's just so hard to think of jokes.
St. John's got it. All right, can we get back with Luke, bro? We got more.
Yes.
All right, let's get back with Luke. So, what was the demise of this like amazing city?
So, well, one, it begins with Egypt losing their independence to the Roman Empire.
So the Romans come over,
Yeah.
and they recognize the greatness of Alexandria, and they're like, "Hey, you got to choose up, or it's over for you."
Yeah, well, it kind of the later Ptolemies, like let's say Ptolemy IV. So you've got Ptolemy 1, 2, and 3. Those are the
This
three
is the
great
Game of
Ptolemies.
Thrones.
Yeah, and
Got it.
so Game of Thrones starts to begin, and these Ptolemies do not care about learning the ways of the old gods of Egypt. They only care about being rich Greek kings and princes.
Yeah.
Extrapolating the resources or extracting the resources from the local poor indigenous people. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's like the British in Africa. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah. They're
And,
just plundering the spoils.
Yeah, exactly. And so at the very end, Cleopatra is born, and she's the first Ptolemy since the earliest times who is in awe of what this ancient world was that she was born into.
And how is she so aware of it?
Well, it's probably just an intrinsic curiosity. We have there is a surviving record of her family going on like a family vacation through Egypt when she's just a little girl. And we know that one of the places that she would have been taken to was the Serapeum, where the giant like bull box sarcophagi are underground. You may have seen them. They're like only one of them could fit in this room. It's crazy. So they had these apis bulls that they would worship, and they would supposedly bury them in these giant diorite granite boxes, whatever. It's just a marvel. And so her family would have been taken there, would have been taken to see the pyramids, and she definitely would have heard the indigenous Egyptian language being spoken. And, you know, it's kind of like one of those people who grow up in a disaffected household where they just innately know this isn't the way it has to be, and they change all of that.
So her
right?
act of rebellion is to lean into the history
Exactly.
and
Yeah,
lean
yeah.
into who these people are.
Yeah.
And then does she become, even though she's an outsider ethnically, does she become the embodiment of this old time?
She does. Yeah. She's loved by the Egyptian people. And
people.
she's pretty vicious. Like she gets rid of her siblings and everything.
What do you mean, get rid? She kills them all? Give us the Cleopatra. Are you guys familiar with the Cleopatra lore? Like, I know this
No, she's a
name.
baddie. She's a seductor.
Yeah,
Always
She's a
been
well,
baddie.
that.
All right, give us the whole.
But even that's contested.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm no Cleopatra expert because usually a Roman historian would be more of a Cleopatra expert because she's such a core figure of the Roman world. She's not really a core figure of the Egyptian world. Not in the same way that like a pure Egyptian pharaoh would have been 1,800 years before she was alive, right? But essentially, she's born into this long lineage, this 300-year-long dynasty of Greek rulers ruling over the Egyptian people from Alexandria. So Alexandria has really greatly expanded. It's extremely wealthy. But
What's the makeup? Is it mainly Greeks or it's mainly
That's a great
Egyptian?
question.
Yeah,
Like, what does it look like
The
at the
city of
time? Is it
Alexandria
diverse?
was broken up into ethnic neighborhoods. So you had Greek people, you had Egyptians,
Spanish Harlem.
you had a Jewish neighborhood.
Really?
And you may have had a neighborhood for like sub-Saharan Africans, but like small one. I forget exactly, but I know that those are the big three: Greek, Egyptian, and like just Semitic people are living there. So Cleopatra is born at the very end of this dynasty, although nobody knows this at the time that this will be the end. But through hook or by crook, she essentially rises her way to power. She's in this situation where she has to she can't actually be pharaoh herself. She's got to politically, dynastically marry her 13-year-old brother. And it's probably just they're probably not actually having sex, whatever. But he's 13 years old. He ends up suspiciously being drowned in this. I think it's an attack on this boat. It's something like that. But anyways, she becomes
murks
pharaoh.
her brother so she can be in charge.
Yeah, exactly. So she becomes pharaoh of Egypt. But Egypt is in this very precarious situation now where all of her incompetent grandfathers who let power slip away. Actually, one of the things that is the worst travesty of the slip of Alexandrian Ptolemaic rule was Ptolemy X. He had bankrupted Egypt's economy by like wasting all of the money, and so he had to go down into Alexander's mausoleum. Alexander had this huge monument that set across the street from the library of Alexandria, and he had this huge monument. And you'd see this statue of Alexander, and then it was under the ground that Alexander is buried in this solid gold sarcophagus, surrounded by the burials of all of the other Ptolemaic kings that are around him. And Ptolemy X goes in and pulls Alexander out of his coffin, puts him in a crystal or alabaster sarcophagus,
Takes the gold.
melts down the gold, and he has to use that to pay off debt.
Wow.
And so yeah, it's
Nasty
like,
work.
It's tragedy.
It is symbolic though that like Alexandria by the very end is getting destroyed, and the way that they're trying to pay for it is by destroying the founder. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
Like there's like a
isn't it?
poetry
Yeah,
to it.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So they put him in an alabaster sarcophagus, and then a few generations later, or a couple generations later, Ptolemy XII, who I believe is Cleopatra's father, is born. He dies away. Ptolemy XIII is Cleopatra's brother. They have to get married. He suspiciously dies by drowning in the river. All of a sudden, Cleopatra is alone in the palace, and she is the ruler. And so her political move from here to allow Egypt to not become swallowed up by the Mediterranean growing in wealth and rising up around Egypt is she really only has one move, because all of her incompetent grandfathers there is no Egyptian military anymore, not like a unified strong military. There's no Ptolemaic military made out of like Greeks living in Egypt. Now they're contracting soldiers from Rome.
Oh,
so they're paying soldiers from Rome. So all of a sudden, who really runs Egypt?
Rome.
Right? So Cleopatra, she sees that there's a civil war that's going on in Rome, and one of the things that she can do, this is like a highly simplistic explanation, Roman historians don't attack me over this, but one of the things that she can do is pull Julius Caesar into Egypt. And so there's this fight over who is going to essentially have the most control in Rome. And Julius Caesar is so popular and has such a great following that he's almost able to sway the Roman people to move the capital of Rome itself from Rome down to Alexandria if he marries Cleopatra. And so essentially Julius Caesar has this like personality complex where he's conquered so much land, he's acquired such a vast amount of wealth. He goes on a vacation down the Nile with Cleopatra, and this is probably the first time in his life. He's always been treated like a king. He's never been treated like a god. Oof. The only god that Julius Caesar knows is Cleopatra, because Cleopatra is God to the Egyptian people, right?
Oh,
so
man.
all of a sudden,
He's like, I like that.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's being worshipped as not only am I this super rich warlord, I kind of like this idea of me being a god, And so think about what that does to his personality. So he starts going back to Rome, and he's like, if we had this capital down in Egypt, we could rebuild the economy of Egypt, and we'd have all of our food that all the Roman people already eat that comes from Egypt
Is ours.
Why do we need to take it across the Mediterranean? Let's just move down there. So all the politicians in Rome are like, we can't let this happen. Obviously, we can't let this happen. So they stabbed Julius Caesar to death. And,
Over that.
Yeah, well, that
Of course. So this is an oversimplistic version.
This is a lifetime of
Also,
resentment being
huge
built up.
move, though. You don't want to move the whole capital down to Alexandria.
Yeah. So, anyways, that kind
So
of
what does
throws
Cleopatra
things-
do when that?
I believe she's in Rome at the time, and she has to flee back to Egypt.
Doesn't she link with Mark Antony after that?
I think Mark Antony, I don't know if he... You
gotta taste it.
No. Mark Antony, I think he's got
Gotta
it.
taste it.
I think he hangs around so he and Cleopatra would have made eyes at each other. They would have known each other. And there's this huge idea that maybe Julius Caesar and Cleopatra never actually loved each other, but this is a dynastic, this is a money move here. But if you can imagine, Julius Caesar's much older, Cleopatra's much younger, Mark Antony is much younger. They're all hanging out in the same rooms. Mark Antony and Cleopatra are making eyes at each other, and they're like, well, if this guy wasn't here, maybe we'd, you can tell the attraction may have been there. And by their behavior later on in life, you can tell that they actually loved each other. It was a real romance. But Mark Antony's got to stay behind in Rome. He and Augustus, long story short, they get together. they take out all of the guys who stabbed Julius Caesar in the back, literally. And then Mark Antony and Augustus, they start feuding with each other over, okay, well, now it's this reverse of Julius Caesar versus Pompey. Well, Pompey dies, Julius Caesar takes hold, Julius Caesar's gone. These two guys come up, they take everyone out. Now it's them butting heads. So Mark Antony eventually has to go to Alexandria. He's got this marriage. He has 2 kids with Cleopatra. But eventually this dog, Augustus, is going to come down, and this guy is going to be Rome's first emperor. Augustus is just a crazy, amazing story. But I'm not really a Roman historian, but it's this. Just think about like.
We're not really a history podcast.
Yeah, I know. But
so you're in the perfect place.
Yeah. But essentially, think about this young kid who is kind of growing up in the shadow of Julius Caesar, who sees this wild Game of Thrones being played in Rome, where politics is literally life and death. Like if you're on the wrong side of the political spectrum, you will be assassinated. And you're so smart and you're so cunning, and the right things happen in your life, and you make the right choices, and you don't have this like arrogant bravado that Julius Caesar has, and you're able to you're like calculating every move of all your political rivals, and then you win, and you win big, and you're the greatest emperor that Rome ever had. When Alexander came down to Egypt, he was going to bring Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Yeah, he's going to bring Cleopatra and Mark Antony back to essentially show them off in a parade in Rome. And the idea is that he presented it in such a way where it's like, oh, we're going to show the unification of our 2 lands, but really he was going to have them assassinated, and he was going to parade them around Rome and show.
You mean Augustus or
Augustus was going to have Cleopatra and Mark Antony assassinated.
Gotcha.
And at least that's what Cleopatra and Mark Antony suspected. And so ultimately, Cleopatra and Mark Antony, they commit suicide because they know what's going to happen to them. And so they have this Romeo-Juliet story.
Get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Great shit.
So all of a sudden.
And the way they kill themselves is crazy.
How?
Yeah.
Well, it's contested whether or not it really
give me the
happened,
fun version.
Yeah. So the romantic story is that
ass.
Mark is that Mark Antony is told, I believe he's told that Cleopatra has committed suicide, and he's so heartbroken by that he runs a sword through his stomach. But then his messengers go tell Cleopatra that he stabbed himself. So Cleopatra sends her messengers to drag him to her quarters. And so she's like sitting on, he gets pulled up onto her bed, and she's like basically holding him as he's dying in her arms, like bleeding all over her bed. You can just imagine this. And she's so distraught, and she knows what's going to happen. Like she can't run. She has she can't do anything. And so the story is she has an asp, which is like a very venomous Egyptian snake brought and bites her on the wrist, and then she dies. That's probably not how she actually killed herself, but they killed themselves in the presence of each other and died together, like Romeo and Juliet.
By a viper, like chewing on your neck. Like,
and Augustus.
And this, when is Romeo and Juliet? This is like
Romeo and Juliet's like 1,500 years
15
later.
years later,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
Romeo and Juliet's like Renaissance era.
But is this kind of
maybe it is
the inspiration for that love story?
Yeah,
that's why Cleopatra's always depicted like with snakes and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
like statues of her. It's like her like holding a
Shakespeare's
snake.
a hack.
And so Augustus knew this whole time that if I praise myself too much for the things that I've accomplished, if I rule with too much of an iron fist, I'm going to get my head cut off someday. I'm going to get assassinated. So what he does, he kind of is a classy guy. He knew that he was, at a certain point, he knew he was emperor of Rome, but he would never actually call himself that. I think he would call him like first citizen, or like the first citizen of Rome or something like that. But classy enough.
When you're strong, appear weak. When you're weak, appear strong.
He allowed Cleopatra and Mark Antony to be buried in Egypt and honored, and he gave the Egyptian people, I believe, a year to mourn the dead pharaoh, and then a year later he becomes crowned pharaoh of Egypt. But really, he's like the emperor of Rome now, and so he returns back, and essentially for the rest of his life he plays his cards. One of the deadliest careers throughout all of history is to be the emperor of Rome.
Of course.
I think what is it? It's like a 40-something% fatality rate, or
Does he
60%.
die of old age?
Mhm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So he is Caesar Augustus.
Caesar Augustus, yeah. But
Yes.
but Octavian, that's his name.
Octavian. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a crazy story, and so that's kind of the thing that's amazing about Alexandria is just so when he's in
What
Alexandria,
a politician. That's some fucking next level stuff. When
Yeah.
every single move could get you killed, and you're plotting that for the entirety of your life.
So he's got this stela that's erected, and I think it's called.
What does that mean?
A stela is like a billboard, sort of. It, like maybe it's the size of this wall right here. It's written in stone. It's meant to be read for all of eternity. And he's got this stela that basically says something along the lines of like things I did. And that's sort of what it translates to in Latin. And it lists out all of his accomplishments. And he essentially says that when I came to Rome, he's saying it in an elegant way, but he's saying when I was born here as a Roman citizen, I founded a city of mud brick. I leave it a city of marble. And so he is the one that started erecting Rome's, because before that it was made out of red brick and like timber, and it was like a really like janky, muddy, just trashy town. It was a big town. He started erecting the white marble stone monuments that you see in Rome. He was inspired to do that
By
because
Alexandria.
because when he arrived in Alexandria, you have to imagine his thought process was like,
How can there be a city greater than ours?
Yeah, how can there be? So Alexandria inspires.
What is it called? The
inspired
Palladium? The Roman Palladium? What is that area when you go visit Rome right now where you see all of the remnants of these old marble structures that are there? Roman...
Well, there's a
looked at it?
Pantheon. There's the Roman Pantheon, which is but the Palladium may be a region of the city, but I'm really not sure.
Look that up for us, Joey,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. I mean, Rome is the most amazing city I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And like New York is the greatest city in history. I'm a little bit biased, but if there wasn't New York, it's Rome. Like you go indulge in Rome, and then you go to Paris, and you're just like, oh, you guys are just knocking off Rome.
Yeah.
Like all this existed.
But
Roman
Rome,
Forum, sorry, the Roman Forum.
Okay, yeah, of course. But to that extent, Rome was really
Now
just
I
a
have to look
knockoff.
at Alexandria and be like, oh shit.
Well, and Alexandria was a knockoff of Athens.
Yes.
So it all sort of starts in Athens. But then, Athens itself is revolutionary in many ways, but they're also so inspired by the Bronze Age Greeks. Like you can kind of follow these webs as it goes back,
And doesn't Alexander get back against the Persians? Like that's one of the things that I think Alexander is like so interesting to me is like I don't know if it's on purpose or if it's incidental, but like Cyrus goes through, or maybe it's Xerxes, and basically goes through and burns down all of Athens during like the Greco-Persian Wars, and then years later, Alexander the Great like sort of kind of unites these like Greek city-states, becomes like this great like Greek leader, and then goes to Persepolis
Exacts
and then
revenge.
burns it down himself, like kind of like an FU to the Persians that burned down
absolutely.
Greece.
Yeah. I think it was the Persians. I forget. It may have been Cyrus the Great invades Greece and then burns down a massive temple on the Acropolis of Athens. And then the Athenians they made the decision to never rebuild it, to leave it there in its top
As a
burned
reminder?
states, as a reminder to everybody what would happen if they allowed invaders to come in again. Yeah.
So the Athenians, are these like the aristocrats of that Greek empire at the time?
Yeah.
If each
So-
one is their own little nation state, but is this like the elites of the elites? Is that
Yes,
kind of
it
how
is.
they see themselves?
It's just, it is. It is the height of all of the Greek world, at least the classical Greek world.
At what time in history is this?
450 BC, just like approximately.
Wow.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons for that is the Athenians and the Greeks in general have like a very young memory. There's an Egyptian saying that there are no old Greeks because the Greeks can't remember their ancient past, whereas the Egyptians have this continuous legacy going all the way back to 3000 BC. But the Greeks fall apart at the end of the Bronze Age. There's
Which
this
would
massive,
be what time?
like let's say 1150 BC.
Okay.
So there's this huge Bronze Age collapse. The Greeks are hit the hardest. You have these massive civilizations like Agamemnon in the movie Troy waging the war. So those are the Mycenaeans. That's this massive Greek Bronze Age Empire, and it all collapses and falls apart. The Greeks fall into this Bronze Age. They hardly remember their ancient past anymore. And so throughout Greece, as it rises again, each little place has their own new philosophy. And the Athenians rise. I think that they have kings at first, and then they have like political tyrants. But then the people overthrow the political tyrants, and they create a new form of government, a democracy.
Democracy, yeah.
Now, this is an all-out democracy. So this is literally straight up just like individual votes, right? Or let's say men who own property or free men or something like that.
Right.
But it's like individual votes. And so you have this whole new philosophy. And that is why, that revolutionary thought that came from the ancient world, that people could be free and rule over themselves, was so profound that we still erect our Capitol buildings in that Athenian,
In honor of that.
in Athenian style.
Yeah.
It's all Athenian.
And how were they able to have the security, safety, and food in order to focus on like a human being's right to sovereignty and thought, and like what created that kind of
okay,
security?
so this is the
Because this is what we're learning, right? Throughout history,
Yeah,
every single civilization that you touch on, they have security, they have borders, and they have food.
So this is
for a
the-
long time.
This is the dark side of the Athenian world. They had a lot of slaves, but the slave it really wasn't based on like race or anything like that. A lot of it was based on the subservient or captured culture. So if you could go capture this culture of people, and you could essentially pull them in, and they would become like your slave, right? So like,
But were
you
the
would have-
Athenians warmongers? Like, where was their muscle? Where they could even...
yeah. So they participated in a lot of wars. They made if I remember correctly, they made an incredible amount of money repelling the Persians during the Persian War of the early 400s BC. They were able to recruit. They were finally able to convince the Spartans to go all in against the Persians. And long story short, as a result of the success of that war, Athens accumulated so much of the power and the wealth of Greece by taking those taxes. That's what it was. So they took a huge amount of taxes because of how much money Athens spent to be able to repel the Persians. And so as a result of that, all the money, just this gravitational pull, all the money just got sucked into Athens. So they put up these massive walls. They build this huge port. I think the port's called the Port of Piraeus. And then they have all these slaves or people they brought in from around the way. Now, these aren't slaves that are like what we may imagine like colonial America to be like. This is more like the working class that exists subservient to the political class. So a regular free Athenian male would wake up and would tell his slaves, and maybe the word slave didn't actually exist. It's a Greek word, but essentially you just had your workmen, but they were obligated by the very institution itself to work for you, right? And maybe they could be punished or killed if they didn't or they tried to escape. But they would work for you. They'd tend to your fields. They would harvest your crops like on the outside of the city walls, or they may take care of like official business that your family has been involved in. Your job was to go up to the Acropolis and participate in politics. And that was literally your job, was to be a politician and to be actively involved in the way that the city itself is being run, and give your opinion and give your thoughts and go to war when the time came. So you would need to buy your own armor. You need to have it smithed out. You need to make your own swords and shields and everything. And so you were obligated. I don't believe that the slaves were ever obligated to actually bear arms and go to war. You were a political man. It was your job to be invested in what was actually good for the city itself, and then defend the city.
And what about people who ran restaurants, farms, like security, policing? Like, there must have been jobs to maintain infrastructure in a city.
Yeah, absolutely. That gets a little bit more complicated. I mean, we only catch glimpses of that from like primary sources. We know that all that existed, but it was probably a mixture of like free men and slaves providing those services. Like you may have a free man who owns a restaurant. There were restaurants. There was fast food in Rome for sure.
Yeah.
But in Athens itself, you would have what was called the agora, which was the marketplace that existed in the center. and you'd have people at their little markets selling stuff. So now, are those free men or women that are selling everything?
Probably not.
We don't really know.
Right.
I mean, it was probably a mixture, right? And there were definitely free people who didn't have slaves. So then what happens? Well,
Yeah.
maybe there's an exception made for them. So all of the variation that exists in our modern world certainly existed back then. So rather than, I guess my explanation is, rather than it being one thing or the other, it's probably all of it. You know, probably there were free people who really couldn't be involved in politics because I got to work. You know, and people are like, hey, man, you should come up and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, who's going to man my stand? Oh, well, you should go get a servant. Well, how am I going to do that? I can't afford to go do that. And then they're just, this person is trapped in the working world. They can't participate in the high aristocratic society of
So
politics.
is this what happens with society once AI and robots become functional?
God, I don't know.
Just get like indentured servants type vibe.
Essentially, you have indentured servants, and you have a obligation to take part in government, society, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And like these indentured servants, or these robots or whatever, fighting each other in a war doesn't really make any sense. I mean, that's just like who runs out of robots first, and then eventually it's people. But
Yeah.
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 Yeah, but I don't know. I just don't know that we'll ever come to a, Athens was a very unique place with so much personality and this like explosion of revolutionary thought, and people that were really, really, they would. Could you imagine our society today paying people to go watch professional football games? Because that's what happened in Athens.
they would pay people to watch
They'd
sports?
pay you to go watch sports.
Why?
They'd pay you to be, because they wanted you to be a part of the community. Like the city itself knew that. Okay, so this is one of the different. Like we are very Roman in the way that we like to decorate our homes and fill our homes with a lot of gorgeous decor, this, that, and the other. We want the inside of our house to be pretty. We want the outside of our house to be pretty. But Athenians and most Greeks were not that way. You would go through a Greek town, and you may not be impressed by any of the homes that are there, because the Athenians didn't really care about that. It was more so about when you went downtown.
What are the public spaces look like?
You went to the Agora. There was a big long building that was like a colonnaded, sort of that typical Greek column style building, two stories deep. It had this open space at the bottom, open space at the top, and then cubbies, almost rooms in the back where little markets would be. And people would hang out underneath that colonnaded area. And it's funny, there was a group of philosophers there that would always gather in one of the corners, and like that little gang of philosophers grew so big, and people didn't really want to be around them. So, and that building's called the Stoa. So those people hung out there so much that the Athenians started calling them the Stoics. And that's where the term Stoic philosophy came from. Not because they named themselves that, or that's the name of their philosophy, but the philosophers who believed what we call Stoic philosophy hung out in the Stoa.
So Marcus Aurelius was just ripping off the Stoics.
Oh, he was obsessed with ancient Greece. Yeah. So much of it goes back to Greece, and so the Greeks knew that so like Pericles, he's one of the greatest political leaders of all time. He's basically known as like the greatest Athenian, and he is going to use, I believe he wants to build a new temple on the Acropolis of Athens, which is the Parthenon. If you guys have ever been to Athens, or I'm sure you've seen a photo of the Parthenon.
Pictures, yeah.
And he wants to build this, and he's essentially giving this speech, and he's like, all right, guys, I got this new project that I want to build. I want to build this huge temple. It's going to be the glory of Athens, and the fact that we kicked Persia's ass, and we basically saved ancient Greece, along with the Spartans, but basically it was us.
Yeah.
And I want this temple to be built, and I'm going to raise some of the taxes to be able to do this for the city. Do you guys want to do this? And the Athenians are like. I don't know if we want to spend the money. Really, you're going to raise our taxes? I don't know if I should do that. And then Pericles goes, all right, well, I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to put a plaque on there that says, built and paid for by Pericles. And then all the Athenians go, no, fuck no, we're going to, and then so they hand over their money. So they're all invested in the public architecture.
The public architecture.
And so, it was all about the community.
Yeah.
You would wake up as an Athenian,
high trust
and
society.
You get right out of your house to go into town. Immediately, the first thing you do in the morning is go to the Agora, and you hung out in town all day long, and you basically just slept at home. And so it wasn't about your personal it was about your personal glory in what other people thought about you in the acts that you did, but not the things that you own. So I don't know that we can have a society quite like that again.
How did they keep the Spartans at bay? If you have this dominant military force, why don't they just take over all of Greece?
The Spartans?
Yeah, like why wouldn't they take over Athens? Why wouldn't they take over Macedonia?
Yeah, so this is a period called the Peloponnesian War. And this is sort of the backslide of the classical period, this height of ancient Greece. And actually, the Athenians didn't keep the Spartans at bay. The Peloponnesian War was between Sparta and Athens, and Sparta won. And I believe there was a Greek traveler named, may have been Polybius, in the 2nd century AD, or maybe it's before that. But he essentially has something where he writes, maybe it was Thucydides that wrote this. I think it was Thucydides. He was an Athenian that was living during the Peloponnesian War and writing about it while he was alive. And he said that if you visited the city of Athens, you would think that it was twice as powerful as it was. If you visited Sparta, you would think it was half as powerful as it was. So Sparta, what's interesting is they had no stone public architecture. It was all wood, and all like wood and perishable materials. They didn't care about like the big grand public architecture, but their philosophy and their way of waging war. I actually basically know nothing about the Peloponnesian War, but I know that ultimately the Athenian, basically their empire was stretched way too thin. They tried to send an expedition off to conquer some cities on the island of Syracuse, which a lot of southern Italy was occupied by Greeks at the time, and there were a lot of Greeks living on Syracuse. And so Athens sends out an expedition to Syracuse. It goes horribly because Sparta is somewhere right in here. Sparta basically, I think there's a massive military defeat where they just destroy this entire Athenian fleet, send Athens' economy even further down. And then the Spartans don't go into Athens and raid it, but they essentially tell the Athenians to like back off. Like you're not going to take over all of Greece. And then so that's not the downfall of Athens, but it certainly is the frame to like this height of Athenian power that had never been seen before in the world, and never would be seen again until the founding of the United States. There would not be anything similar to it until the United States was created.
What do you mean? Not the Roman Empire?
No. It's just, the Roman Empire is just not similar to ancient Greece in any way other than the way it looks. Like you did not have the political freedom. Like one of the big things was
that's what you mean. You mean the political structure is most
the political
similar
freedom
to
and the philosophy behind the very existence of the people itself is not similar. We're probably much more similar to the Greeks, even though we have a constitutional republic and the Greeks were like an absolute democracy. We carry so much of the same kind of like primal nature of the Greeks. This fight for independence, this fight to be your own people who rule over each other, that aren't ruled by a king, to have freedom of speech, to be able to represent yourself. Even though we're actually way more free than they were. But this idea of self-determination. Yeah, and it was born there.
But were the founding fathers like astute observers and consumers of Greek philosophy? Yeah. So are we crediting the French a little bit too much in their inspiration?
Well, I think the founding fathers are heavily influenced by the French, right? Because
that's what I'm saying. From my understanding of history, it seems like these ideas are coming from the French. Yeah. But do these ideas really emanate through Athens, then to the French, and then to
that's a good question. I mean, there is neoclassical France, which I don't know too much about, but I think that perhaps maybe my American bias is totally showing. But
I like this idea of us being inspired by the Greeks.
Oh yeah, I mean there is no doubt. If you go to Thomas Jefferson's house, I was standing in his library. It's
big fan of France.
Yeah, big fan of France, but big fan of ancient Egypt and Greece, and a huge fan. And he's got books on ancient Egypt and Greece. The bed that he died in, his clock that sat above him was like 2 Egyptian obelisks, and so
Yeah, you see all this like Greek and Egyptian architecture all throughout the United States, and everybody does this whole like Illuminati thing, and we're worshiping some sort of satanic stuff. But is it just, hey, these were the dominant cultures of antiquity, and this is the inspiration for our nation?
And by aligning yourself with those things, you are aspiring to be something that is higher and older than you are, right? Like you're aspiring to almost like an unachievable goal.
Yeah.
But by doing that,
You might get close.
Yeah, you might get close.
Yeah,
So I think a lot of the founding fathers were really inspired by antiquity. Obviously, they're culturally inspired by the contemporary French.
Yeah.
But am I wrong in saying that the United States might be like a much more successful attempt at like this absolute freedom? And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know much about the French Revolution and
Neither do I, but yeah, I guess I don't know enough to comment if they achieved it or if we have. But I'm sure the perception within the United States of America, and there might be propaganda that's holding that up. Yeah, but no, of course, yeah. Now we didn't get it right for a long time.
Yeah.
But the goal always is to be held to that standard.
Yeah,
for sure.
Can I ask you another great story?
Yes, sir.
This is not pertaining to Europe, but this is my favorite story that you told me when we did the pod.
Okay.
And this is the Aztecs, going back to Mexico.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
Wandering through as warriors, and they stumble across a land, and then they ultimately take over the land through potentially a betrayal. Can you tell me that story?
If we still have time, I gotta tell you what I think about Atlantis also.
Yes, we have time. We have time.
So
I want to make sure you have time because you have a flight, but we're good.
Yeah.
We're good right now.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
So the red wedding. All right, so I'm trying to think of like how I can start this.
What
story.
year roughly are we looking at?
Yeah, so Cortez invades Mexico in 1519 without the permission of the Spanish crown. And he marches his way over the course of several months to... When he lands among the Maya people, and he writes that the Maya people are like short and sickly, and they're kind of ill. Well, they're being affected by Spanish or European influenza from in the decades prior, when the Spaniards were out in like the Bahamas and Jamaica and the Caribbean islands. Well, some of the traders and people who are naturally curious are poking around on the shorelines of Mexico, interacting with the native people, but they don't realize they're getting them all sick. And so that disease is starting to move into the Maya world. Well, from, let's call it 1492-ish, maybe the year 1500 more accurately, over the next 19 years of 1519, a lot of people are getting sick in Mexico. So Cortez arrives, and he starts noticing these sickly people, and he's essentially saying what all aliens would say. He's saying, like, take me to your leader. He wants to know, like, where's the head honcho of all this world? So he finds his way to Tenochtitlan. And while the Spaniards are there...
This is modern-day Mexico City, right?
This is modern-day Mexico City, yeah. So
at this point in time when he's there, has the city already been cultivated? Like, it is originally just these, like, island chain. Has it now been built up?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what is...
Hey, could we look up Tenochtitlan Aztec city reconstruction, and you'll see it. It's
a miracle what they did with this place.
So amazing that the Spaniards, the soldiers who are, say, walking alongside Cortez as he's riding his horse, and they're looking up at him, and once they've left Tenochtitlan for the first time, if you'd zoom in on that, they look up at Cortez and they're like, can you believe what we've seen? I feel like this was all a dream. I can't actually believe that we found this. They are 400 there are 400 Europeans in all of the Americas at this point, and they're all together in this city, right? They went and found some alien planet. It's wild.
How many millions of people here, you think?
Millions. I mean, there's not really much of an estimate, but I mean,
it's rare that
I think that they say that there were 10 million Aztecs or something like that. Wow. But maybe that was 10 million people that were under Aztec control, right? Because
400 Europeans.
Yeah.
And what they did was wrong, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean it's ballsy, right?
So
A million versus
there's
400.
millions of them. There's 400. This is 300, right? This
Yeah.
is okay.
But it was bad what they did.
It's horrible.
This
what
is
they did.
reverse 300.
It is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it worked. Okay.
This is 300. This is like 300 is 300 men stopping a million people
Yeah.
and from invading their land. But this is 300 people
Where do
invading
they
a
get
million
the
people.
balls? Because, and again, I don't know technologically where things are at Spain in 1492, but are they reaching the shores?
Height of the world, Spain, 1492.
Yes,
Yeah.
but are they reaching a more sophisticated civilization? Do they feel intellectually intimidated when they're looking upon this city, or are they going, "These are still people that will be subservient to us. At the end of the day, we found them."
I think that's more.
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So they're marveling at what they're seeing, but they're not intellectually intimidated. They're like, "We got guns." Like they don't even
sure.
have that.
I
shit.
think that's probably fair.
Okay.
And also, when you say like, where did they get the balls? Well, one of the things is, people look at the entire colonial world as being, this inherent like great crime that was done, to many different cultures. But the reality of the people who committed those crimes was they either do that or they die in the slums back home. Like there are not rich, wealthy people being born in Spain who are like, man, I'm going to go be a boat captain and learn how to do the hardest job imaginable, and then I'm going to go lead an army to conquer these people and probably die.
This is crypto.
This is people who grew up in the slums that don't really have any opportunity
Here's
back
my
home.
way out.
This is my way to have some wealth, and they didn't realize when they set out that they were starting in you can't change the course of what you're about to do. You can't turn around. You're going to be militarily obligated to do this. This is apparent in the whole burn the ships philosophy. They burned the ships so that they couldn't retreat, right? This is what you're gonna do. And if that meant killing thousands of people and slaughtering a whole civilization to take everything that they had and take it back home to enrich yourself, you didn't have a choice.
Right.
You didn't have, and you probably didn't even know that was going to happen when you set out to do this.
Right.
So colonization is something like this establishment of the global market was something that was always going to happen, and it was always going to be indescribably horrific.
Yeah. Still wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not justifying.
But had it not been Europeans, it would have been somebody else.
Right.
100%. Without a doubt, it all would have happened. And so when you become a historian, you really start studying it, you stop seeing, now there are cases where there are legitimately bad guys. Like this is the bad guy in the story. But most of history is actually way more complicated than that, where you realize the two people are pitted against each other and they neither had a choice.
Right. Okay, so they're there.
So they conquer the city of Tenochtitlan over the course of a couple of years, and then you have Spanish chroniclers going through the city, and they are taking an account of how the Aztecs came to be, and they hear this story that is essentially this red wedding, and so it paints this picture of how the Aztecs came to power. So the Aztecs were not from Mesoamerica. Mesoamerica, class. Mesoamerica is this El Salvador, Honduras, up to here, somewhere in North Mexico, maybe even southern New Mexico, like just where I was on that expedition a little bit a couple weeks ago. That may have been the northern tip of Mesoamerica, but it's just this way of life. It's kind of like the Eastern Mediterranean. They're all inspired by each other, and they all share the same trade routes and everything. Like you can kind of look at it all as one civilization broken up by many different cultures and kingdoms and stuff. So that's sort of what Mesoamerica is. But the Aztecs probably came from somewhere in the American Southwest.
So they're colonizers too.
Absolutely, yeah.
I understand your framing now. You're like, they have done this, somebody else is going to do this, and this is the history of the world, and it doesn't mean it's okay. It just is what it is.
It's the history of particularly the Americas.
Okay.
The Americas colonize each other over and over and over and over and over and over again. Just for at least 13,000 years. That's what was going on. The first ones were the Clovis culture that came in and they pushed all the pre-Clovis people out and just took over the Americas. And then you've got Folsom culture, and it goes on and on and on and on and on forever. And you can just see cultures just disappearing and being swallowed up by other cultures. I mean, that's what was going on. And so the Aztecs somewhere around the 1100s.
Now I understand why white people love history. Right? Because you're like, yeah, we're not that bad. Yeah, we're just the latest.
I still got to answer your question.
We'll get there.
So, as a very side note, the reason that Europeans are conquerors and explorers and raiders and everything is because this is a very inhospitable place and it's really, really hard to survive. In Africa, this is where people sprouted out of the damn ground. You don't have to do anything to live here. You can just live.
Yeah.
This is where right here is where we're supposed to live. No, I'm sorry. Right here is where we're supposed to live. Tanzania and Kenya. Yeah, the Serengeti. This
Uganda.
is where humans are supposed to be. But they left. They went all the way up here. Up here is a very inhospitable place to be. And so it really benefits you if you start becoming a marauder and a raider and you start stealing from other people and going on these, huge like raiding expeditions and, stealing shit. And so that's how Europeans survived for a long time. So it breeds this kind of like idea and way of life of like, we're going to set off on this thing and go on this huge adventure and slaughter all these people and take all their stuff and bring it back for our glory. Like that's the way of life there. It was the way of life for a lot of other people too, but really particularly Europe, and many similar situations.
So you have no choice but being white devils. I get it.
It was put upon us.
Yeah, and
it was cold, Al.
It is so cold. It's so cold. It's rainy.
And so in the
The
Americas,
most dangerous thing in the world is a white man that's cold. Yeah. You do not want it.
Yo, turn the heat up. Turn the heat up.
So
that chair looks comfy. All right, go on.
So a lot of Native Americans find themselves in these similar situations. The Aztecs are up here living in the middle of the damn desert, and they get pushed out. Their culture apparently was not very compatible with the people that they were living with. And they weren't very compatible when they came into Mesoamerica either. The Mesoamericans they were warlike, but they weren't warlike and vicious in the same way that the Aztecs were. So the Aztecs get pushed out. According to their history, they get pushed out. At the lowest, they live somewhere up here. At the highest, they live somewhere up here. But somewhere in this area is where the Aztecs
So
come
basically,
from.
southern United States, northern Mexico.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so then they get pushed out and they come down and they find this really nice area in the Valley of Mexico. And they start almost like vultures. They're like circling around the Valley of Mexico and they're trying to find a place that they're going to settle down. But all of the cultures of the Valley of Mexico are, you can never say they're peaceful, right? But way more peaceful. Like they're all up for war, but not.
It's not their main prerogative.
Yeah. And so they're all pushing. They're pushing the Aztecs out, saying, "No. You guys don't belong here. We don't want your kind here. You guys are too vicious. You're too savage. You're too barbarian.
Go back to America.
Yeah, exactly. Go back to America." And so one of the kingdoms here decides, well, you know what? We can use these guys. They're kind of like savage, barbaric people, but I think we can find a use for them. So they call the Aztecs in, and this is the kingdom of Calhuacan. And so they're living in the Mexican Valley amongst all these other pre-Aztec cultures. And they eventually tell the Aztecs, okay, we're going to give you a place to live that you can settle on. And in return, you're going to unite as an army and you'll come whenever we call on you. Right? So they're going to be mercenaries for the kingdom of Calhuacan. So they say...
Shit, that's the Egyptians paying for the Roman fighters.
Yep.
Shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know what? I'm going to tell you something crazy. That's very, very observant. So they tell they give the Aztecs a little plot of land that they can live on, and it's this little rocky outcropping out in the middle of Lake Tenochtitlan, which is when we were looking at the city of Tenochtitlan, it's surrounded by water. Originally, that was just a tiny little rock outcropping, just like a piece of crap land that they couldn't imagine anybody could live on it. So they send the Aztecs there. Well, the Aztecs are looking for this prophecy, and the prophecy says that they'll know where their promised land is, proverbially, when they see a serpent and then an eagle come down and clutch the serpent and fly away with it. That's why we have that imagery of the serpent and the eagle. So when they get out there, there's this snake on the rocks. Eagle comes down, picks up the snake and flies off. And so the Aztecs go, okay,
This is it.
You know, like this is what the God's telling us, that we have to make it work here. So over the course of the next couple hundred, maybe 150, 200 years, they're working as mercenaries for the kingdom of Calwacan. And Calwacan lives on the coastline while the Aztecs are in this crappy land in the center. And so they're acting as mercenaries for Calwacan, and Calwacan is marking off all these other kingdoms around the lake of Tenochtitlan. They're sacking them and pulling them into the kingdom of Calwacan, sacking them, killing all their lords, installing your own lords, pulling them in. So the Aztecs helped Calwacan do all of this. And during this time, the Aztecs are being paid very well. They're now building their town. And so it's now sprawling out into this metropolis. That's a lesser version of the photos that we've seen. And then...
how are they getting rid of the water? Or how are they elevating the...
Yeah, well, they must be quarrying stones in and building up like the land that's actually, you know, you're in this rocky outcropping, so you're building up the sides of it.
Because it's below sea level, right?
Yeah, what's below the level of the lake? Yeah,
In a
yeah.
lake bed.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
a lake bed.
in a lake bed. So they're bringing in stone. So you got to.
That's why when you go to Mexico City, you see a lot of the buildings are actually like tilting.
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
yeah.
And it's just because they're built on this lake bed.
Yeah,
that's
and
not
they're
firm.
all like sinking.
Yeah.
Now, in ancient times, they were repairing all of that constantly, so the city would have just been perfectly flat and level the whole. You know, had the Aztecs not fallen, it would have stayed that way. But this is all man-made. The whole city from the very center, where the center of the city is there, where you see like the royal palisades and everything, that was where that little rocky outcropping was. And they just brought up the land itself from inside the water and then expanded the city on top of that. And so you would traverse the city on like man-made sidewalks and little ravines where you could sail boats between buildings.
It's like a Venice, if you will.
Very similar.
Wow.
And so... you can imagine they're being paid royally for their mercenary work,
yeah.
more and more and more and more and more. And eventually, I don't know about what year this would be, maybe about the year 1350, so maybe 200 years supposedly after the Aztecs arrive. The Aztec priest goes into his inner sanctum and, you know, takes like an absurd amount of peyote or whatever, and he goes to meet the god Huitzilopotli, which is the war god, and the war god tells him it's now time to have our prince marry the princess of Calwacan and form the dynasties into one. And so that's the Aztecs. Now they've helped Calwacan conquer everybody. It's the Aztecs going to them and saying, we want to marry our princess to you and become one kingdom. So it kind of brings them up. So they go give the proposition to the kingdom of Calwacan. And you can just imagine the king there is like, well, if they're proposing this, that means they're probably willing to go to war with us if we say no.
And we don't want to fight with these guys because...
Yeah, we don't want to fight with them because we just built them up and they are our army now. So the king of Calwacan is like, and they're proposing a possibility where I remain king.
Sounds great.
So I guess like I don't have a choice. You know, you can just imagine like that's what was going through his
Very
head.
reasonable offering, by the way.
Yeah. And so the king of Calwacan accepts, and they plan out this wedding where they're going to have the wedding in the sitter. No, I'm sorry. They have the wedding in Calwacan. So the prince and the king of the Aztecs come into Calwacan. They do this huge wedding, and then they bring the princess back, and they're going to have this celebration over the. So they've had the wedding in Calwacan. Now they're going to do a celebration of the merging of the two families. So then there's going to be a parade that comes. You can just imagine it would come down this bridge that crossed from the mainland, from the city of Calwacan to Tenochtitlan. So there's going to be this big royal parade coming into Tenochtitlan. The priest goes back into the sanctum to meet with Huitzilopotli, and Huitzilopotli says, we're going to ambush the kingdom of Calwacan when they come into the city gates. The prince is going to flay, which is to skin the princess, take all of her skin off. Oh. And is going to kill her, like rip her heart out, sacrifice her to Huitzilopotli, flay her, which is, you would flay her. And by doing that, you would bring honor to the flayed god. I forget his name. But there was a god of flaying people, of cutting their skin off.
Yeah.
And so they kill the princess, they cut her heart out, sacrifice her. I say cut her heart out, but however they really sacrifice people, whether Mel Gibson was right or not. But they sacrifice her, they flay her, cut all of her skin off, and then the prince slips himself into her skin, puts on her skin, puts on her head, and then when they bring in the royal procession of Calwicon, they are going to bring the princess out, and the prince comes out wearing her skin.
Holy shit.
And essentially just causes mass hysteria. And then
Caitlyn Jenner takes over
and then
the Yucatan Peninsula. Oh, wow.
and then the Aztec warriors just come out of nowhere, ambush the
What do
Calwicon
all the
royalty.
Aztec people that don't know that's going to happen, what are they thinking? Are they like, damn, you want to marry this ugly bitch? They're like, don't do it, Prince. You deserve better. Like, that's crazy. Okay, go on.
It is. And so they, after they basically horrify, I think that there was an element of shock, right?
You think?
Well, of course. But I think that shock and fear made the sacrifice more
fervent.
Exactly, right? So that fear, if you could cause like a mass amount of chaos and really scare somebody and just petrify them, and then you sacrifice them, well, that means more to the gods, right? And so all these Aztec warriors come in and they just ambush the Calwicon army, slaughter all of them. They capture the king and the whole royal procession, and then it doesn't say, but you can imagine they march them to the top of the pyramid and sacrifice them to Huitzilopochtli, and then move the army across the bridge and invade the city of Calwicon, basically burn the whole thing to the ground, capture everyone, sacrifice a lot of them, I'm sure. And then all of a sudden the Aztecs are sitting out fortified in this massive city in the middle of this lake with this huge moat around it, and they just conquered the whole Mexican Valley over the course of like 200 years or so.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
And they all sit around at dinner after the wedding. They're just like,
we did it.
that shit worked. They're dapping each other up. He's taking the skin off. Like, bro, you killed it.
There's some guy who's probably like, dude, I made that up about the eagle and the snake. I didn't even see it. Guys, just take a break for a second. You wouldn't hire a barber to fly your plane. You wouldn't hire your electrician to do your taxes, because when something serious happens, you want the experts, and that's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. If you ever injured by the negligence of another, Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They have over 100 offices nationwide and more than 1,000 lawyers with over $30 billion recovered for over 500,000 clients. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting to get you full and fair compensation. And listen to this. Their fee is free unless they win. You don't pay unless they win. That's right. Free unless they win. So for more information, go to forthepeople.com/flagrant. That's forthepeople.com/flagrant, or dial pound law. Again, that is forthepeople.com/flagrant, or dial pound 529 and let them know that we sent you. This is a paid advertisement. All right, guys, let's take a break for a second. Did you know that the average employer has to sort through roughly 250 resumes per job opening? It's time consuming, guys. Well, if you're hiring, here's good news. You can now review all of these resumes and applications faster thanks to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter has a new feature that instantly shows you the most interested qualified candidates first. And today you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/flagrant. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology finds qualified candidates quickly. And with ZipRecruiter's new feature, qualified candidates who are very interested in your job show up at the top of your list. You also get a feel for their personality. Candidates can tell you in their own words why they're interested in your job. So cut through the standard. Get to the standouts with ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/flagrant. That's ZipRecruiter.com/flagrant. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Now let's get back to the show.
Throughout all of that, as scary as that sounds, when the Spaniards arrived and they would go into the marketplaces of Tenochtitlan, and the Spaniards are pulling out their steel swords and just slicing people up. I mean, you could with those blades. I mean, you can cut somebody in half. You can cut their head off. You can cut their arm off like so easily. And it was the brutality of how swiftly and mercilessly and without a thought the Spaniards would slaughter people and then just leave their bodies to rot in the streets. That actually horrified the Aztecs, because the Aztecs at least saw the value in your soul. They really saw the value in your soul.
Whoa.
So even if they hated
I'm
you,
killing you without a sacrifice.
yeah.
For
I'm
no
killing
reason.
you for no reason at all.
Yeah. So the Spaniards would
oh my
just
God.
just slice this person's head off, slice this guy's arm and leg off, just leaving people rolling around in pain on the sides of the streets.
So there's an Aztec dude in some chick's skin looking at the Spaniards like, these people are demonic. Like,
Exactly.
Imagine robbing someone, taking their money, then throwing it away.
Yeah.
You'd be like, you
That's
just
the
robbed me
Joker.
for no reason.
Yeah.
Whereas like if a robber would be like, yeah, you take the money. Like,
Well, that's really like an astute observation. There was not currency in any of the Americas. It was they had different things that they valued. Whereas in the old world we have all kinds of different forms of currency, but in the Americas it was really about trade, or what you could offer, or like the esoteric value, the spiritual significance of things. And so they really saw value in people's souls. Like that wasn't something to just be thrown away. Even if it was your enemy, you needed to sacrifice him to your God so that in return the God would bless you.
Right.
And wasting that is really just like taking somebody's, like you kill somebody for their money and then you throw their money on the street, and then it's like
that guy's
it's
insane.
totally antithetical to your whole existence. So the Aztecs were actually horrified by how mercilessly the Spaniards could just march through thousands of people and slaughter them without a second thought.
And then the Spaniards betray the Aztecs. Right? Like with in like Montezuma, right?
Yeah. So nobody really knows what exactly happened, but the Spaniards are held up in the palace with Moctezuma, and one way or another, Moctezuma dies while he's in the palace with the Spaniards. Alone with them. Yeah. So there's all different kinds of ways that people think it happened. Probably the Spaniards just killed him.
Right.
Often.
Montezuma's who?
He was the emperor of the Aztec world.
Aztec, okay.
And that's the Montezuma's revenge, when you drink the water in Mexico and you get sick. That's what they call it, Montezuma's revenge.
But it's actually, what's the name of the people that the Aztecs conquered? The ones you just said.
Calhuacan.
It's Calhuacan's revenge.
Facts.
It is Calhuacan's revenge.
Yeah.
Right? Like
that's right.
The Aztecs take out Calhuacan, and then all of a sudden the Spaniards come in and take out the Aztecs in a betrayal.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. It's not as dramatic, but it's like, yeah, come to the temple, we'll talk, and then knocks them out.
Was it a freshwater lake?
Yeah.
Okay, so they had access to water.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, man.
All the sites across Mesoamerica are built on, it's all built right next to water. I mean, when we were on that expedition in the Gila, man, it was just so obvious. It's that southern tip of New Mexico that I was talking about might be the northern end of Mesoamerica, of ancient Mesoamerica.
Yeah.
And so when we were there, man, it was just so obvious, like how crucial not only being near water, but being right on it was. Because think about how much water you drink all the time. You got to be right there on it. And so those waterways kind of determine. If you go to REI and you're checking out, usually on like behind the counter, there will be an inverted map of the United States, and the country will be blue, but the only thing that's actually highlighted in white are the rivers, and that's the ancient map. Isn't that weird?
Meaning that's where all civilization popped up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Mississippian world, which we know that there's so many mound builders, from the Ohio mound builders all the way down to Louisiana, that river is massive. It's just so dense, and it's no
our
surprise.
Nile, right?
Yeah, it's our Nile. It's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I had another question. Oh, how many lost cities of gold are there still today? Undiscovered.
Well, the LiDAR team I'm working with, they may have found one this morning.
Yeah, Luke is holding back, bro. He hit us up with a picture of his LiDAR team somewhere where I can't say, that discovered some wild stuff.
Yeah,
and you're not willing to share.
So I'm working with a team run by Daniel Wyndham out of Georgia. It's a company called Basemap, and we're doing several LiDAR projects in the southeast U.S. And then we're going to be doing one later this year, maybe in August or September, down in the Amazon.
Yeah.
But this morning, he sent me a new image of a LiDAR scan that they had done down in the Amazon, just like running the drone straight over this huge piece of land. And there are these huge circular geometric earthworks connected to each other. But as far as
It looked like roads, dude. It looked like
They're
roadways.
huge, they're massive highways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And those highways went all through the Amazon. I mean, all through the Amazon. But as far as how many are there, dozens. I mean, dozens, dude. There's no one El Dorado. The whole story of El Dorado is a bunch of different Spaniards hearing a bunch of different stories about a bunch of different places that had a lot of gold, and then getting confused, and it all kind of melds into El Dorado. But El Dorado was half of the continent of South America itself, you know? So everywhere you go, if you find a city that's got gold artifacts in it, if you could excavate the whole thing, you'd be like, whoa, this is El Dorado because
Has
how much gold
anybody
there's
found a bunch of gold, like the Count de Monte Cristo stuff? Has that ever happened where it like fundamentally changed somebody's life? No, I'm not talking about a gold mine. I'm talking about like lost or buried treasure.
Well, okay, so there's a lot of stuff when it comes to finding like Spanish shipwrecks that have changed people's lives. But as far as ancient sites, I think that there were maybe times early on where people would find ancient sites and you would buy the property and excavate it, and you could sell all the artifacts. But as far as, I don't know about like enriching one person's life because he found a bunch of stuff and was able to sell it or whatever. But as far as finding sites that are filthy rich with gold, oh hell yeah. Yeah, northern Peru, out in the deserts, had tons of them, man. There was so much gold there that the kings there would wear gauntlets of gold with like fabric woven in them, and you could just wear these like golden gloves, and your whole body would be covered in gloves. Yeah, your whole body would be. I mean, it's crazy stuff.
So you're saying that there are modern people that existed within our parents' lifetime that found these massive gold.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they find them all the time.
Like treasure hunter people who for decades have been looking, eventually stumble across it, and they are rich.
Well, I mean, maybe, yeah, possibly. It's probably rarer because I think that the local government will come in and grab that stuff.
Or you're going to do it with a university, and you have to turn stuff over with the
that happens a lot.
institution.
Yeah.
That's whack.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
That's whack. No, that don't count.
You want
I'm talking
Indiana
about
Jones.
gold, bro. Artifacts you got to give to the museums, but
Yeah.
the raw gold is the raw gold.
Yeah.
But how much raw gold do you find? Like, if you're going to go into someone's tomb, it's all going to be decorative gold.
Yeah. It's all going to be decorative gold or like blocks of gold or ingots.
Blocks.
You know, that kind of thing.
Bring it over here.
talking
Bring it
about
over
bullion?
here. Bullion? That's fair game. But don't you think bullion is, if it's art or something like that, then you give it to the museum.
Yeah.
But bullion,
What are we talking about?
I don't know.
Natural
Gold,
colonizers
bullion,
right
bro.
here.
just gold.
Just
Nah, bro.
You're talking about like gold
It's crazy.
ore almost.
Oh,
like,
if
like,
you got ore,
Or
I could be wrong.
if you got a satchel, if you got that
that's gold bullion.
right
that's a
there,
bullion. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
free game.
Gold,
But if you got a
yeah.
satchel of gold, that's if you got even coins aren't art. Excuse me. If it's art, you got to give it to the museum. If it's any other form,
If it's just like yeah.
because they got it from somewhere.
Yeah.
Finders keepers.
Nah, what if you're related to? If I'm related to you, then I'm pissed.
Talk to me.
Oh, we just discovered a tomb and there's millions of dollars of gold. And I go, oh, whose tomb was it? And they go, oh, it was some guy. And I
Tombs don't count.
go, well, who gets the tomb?
Oh, so if it's another race, it's fine.
Tombs
That
don't
you can
count.
Take the gold.
No, tombs
No,
don't
if
count.
I'm related to the guy that's getting raided, I'm gonna be like, that's my tomb. That's my great 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 grandfather's. That belongs to me.
I'm kind of like even a little bit nah on that.
You guys.
I'm kind of even a little nah on that. Art is different. If you make art, that should be preserved. There's a story to be told. We can understand these cultures, etc. But just raw gold?
Bully.
Bullion, bro?
You know, there's a big controversy about this in the United States where, you know, it's a federal crime.
I'm gonna solve it for you
If-
right now. Go.
If you find a Native American like arrowhead on the ground,
Yeah.
and it's on public land, and you pick that thing up and put it in your pocket, that's a felony.
You should give that back. You should give that to the museum.
Everything you should give back.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
You should give that back. Now, I will
Everything.
say
Gold
there's nothing
included.
we
The
have
land.
but we don't have to study that, right? Like we don't have to like because obviously those arrowheads weren't really effective. So there's nothing we're gonna learn. We could study about what not to do, right?
Yeah.
That'd be helpful. We'd be like,
Yeah.
let's never make arrowheads like that when people have bullet heads, right? That's something we could learn. But in terms of giving it to a museum, I believe that. I support that. But if right next to the arrowhead there is a little patch of bullion, What are we gonna do for that? Like, am I gonna give that to the museum? Oh, here's bullion. Like, get out of here.
You give it to the people.
What people?
The natives.
Which natives, bro?
Which they got it from someone else.
Yeah,
I gotta
you
find
see
some Quacacons.
Yeah.
If there's no more Quacacons,
there's a few of them.
the Aztecs took them out.
There's a few of them.
If there was a few, then they get it. If you can prove Quacacon, if you can 23andMe and prove Quacacon, you get it. Anything the Aztecs got, that's fair game. Now that I know that story.
Quacacons still alive?
I mean, there are probably people who have their blood. Yeah, probably.
I don't even
See, there
think
you go.
leprechauns get to keep their gold. If we're really gonna go that far back, like,
Are leprechauns,
the
are leprechauns Irish?
They are.
But how much gold is in Ireland?
That's what I'm saying.
Where the hell did he get all this bullion?
Yeah, where'd they get
How
the
much?
bullion is the real question.
Yeah.
Not much.
Went and
Yeah, I don't
colonized.
think there's much
Took
out of
other
there.
people's bullion.
They had to get it from like, gosh, I think all that gold comes from Africa. I'm pretty sure.
That's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Black
Yeah.
Irish.
Finally, somebody said.
or
Irish.
I think it comes from, or maybe like Iran, Iraq area.
Why they have no gold up here?
I don't know.
No.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there is in the modern day. I don't know if ancient people were mining it.
We're even looking for it.
Yeah, I know that there are silver mines in Greece, but I'm really not 100% sure. Now we're talking about this. I'll answer your.
Yes, what are you?
my
What
race question.
white are you?
So I had thought for a long time, just listening to like family legends and stuff, that I would be like Italian, or that I would have a little bit of Native American in me, which I do, but it's not. It doesn't actually
So
come up
insignificant.
It doesn't actually come up on a DNA test. So I went and got a DNA test done, and my family got them too. So we really know. I am 40% Scottish, 38% English, 4% Welsh, 4% French, and then something else in there.
That's
He's
it.
just born
But
white.
what's really interesting.
Scots, the
Just-
greatest
just
people in
born
history.
white.
Which is crazy because people say that you look like someone else who's also Scottish.
Who? You think people say we look similar?
Yeah.
Honestly, sitting here during this whole podcast, it's been delightful.
Yeah.
You guys are lucky, bro. You guys can do this every week. This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is insane.
But so
People have said we look similar.
oh hell yeah,
No
yeah.
way, dude.
When I was
So
on,
he does the.
He even touches
does
it.
it.
It's hard
Yeah.
not to. Because you got it. It's hard not to, right?
I've been trying not to touch it as much. But
you study Latinos, you make fun of Latinos?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
right,
We're
that's right.
both observing the cultures.
That's right. But no. So like when I was on camp and when I was on Rogan, people were always like, they'd be like, I really enjoy listening to Andrew Scholl's little brother talk about it.
Damn, why they got to age max me? You know what I mean? Little brother. How
Okay,
old
so-
are you?
28.
Oh, you're a youngin', dude.
Yeah.
So finishing what I was saying. You can also it's really cool. You can see the DNA that you would have during the Middle Ages, like the medieval period. You can see what you would have during the Roman period, and then like ancient, like hunter-gatherer DNA. So what was really interesting was like my skin tans so easily. I don't tan like a technically I'm a Scottish Highlander, but I don't tan like a Scottish Highlander. So
what I keep telling people.
somewhere in me,
I'm so, yeah, go on,
He
bro.
does say
yeah,
that.
and
Talk your shit or our shit.
So what I found out.
Yeah.
The city of London, founded by the Romans, in my
Londinium.
2,000 years ago.
Londinium.
That's exactly right.
Come on.
2,000 years ago,
Come on, bro.
my DNA was 53 or 57% insular Celt, which would be like King Arthur's, like the Knights of the Round Table,
And
like
then
those kind of
illegal
guys.
immigration.
The Italians come in.
Yep.
They build the city of London, and today, 20% of the people living in the UK have upwards of 40%
Pakistani
Roman.
DNA.
40% Roman.
Oh, Roman,
DNA.
Roman.
And
Roman,
so when people always say I look Italian, it's actually the ancient Roman, really far back in my DNA.
I've always felt that way too.
Yeah. So that's what I am.
I've always have I not told you guys this?
You never said you're Italian. You
I've
talk
never
kind of
said-
Italian.
I've
So you and
never
I,
said I'm
we're
Italian.
like we're like
Nero.
we're like a hero. We're like the original colonizers.
We are the OGs.
Yeah, that's right.
But we did like create a little bit of civilization.
But who, the Scots or the Italians?
how badass
well,
were the
I'm talking about
Scots?
the Romans. Yeah.
How badass were the Scots, though? Even the Romans couldn't handle that.
Dude, so I live in North Carolina. North Carolina. This is what's really cool. So North Carolina.
I know exactly where you're going.
The Scots-Irish people leave during the 1700s, come to North Carolina, and they find, like in the Piedmont, where it leads up to the Appalachian Mountains, looks so similar to the
Highlands,
to the Scottish Highlands.
I know.
Turns out it's the same damn mountain range.
Of course it is.
The Appalachian Mountains and the Scottish Highlands are the same mountains.
You didn't know that.
And today there are more Scottish descendants living in North Carolina than there are in Scotland.
Wow.
Yep.
It's shocking to me that you guys don't know our history.
When they film Scottish TV shows, they film them in North
why
Carolina.
don't you know more
why
about
don't
Scottish
you know
history?
more, dude? Why don't you know more?
What food did the Scottish invent that's very popular in North Carolina?
Do you know this one?
I don't.
Do you know this one?
Nope.
Do you know this one?
Of course I do.
Barbecue.
Is it really?
I was going to say fried chicken.
We also did invent that.
No, you didn't.
We did invent fried chicken.
Technically.
We did invent fried chicken.
How good is Braveheart?
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
My mom took me when I was a kid, and she was depressed for a week. She cried in the movie theater and then didn't talk to our family for 2 days.
Wow.
Swear to God.
Wait, why not? What's your family have to do with it?
I know. She was going through it, bro. She was going through it. That movie, that was some serious shit. My family doesn't like the English to this day.
Yeah. They ride for the Bonnie Prince Charles. They're.
You know what's crazy
Keep
is
talking that shit, my boy.
you know what's
Keep
crazy is
talking
it's
that
probably
shit.
the most of our English DNA is from Scots who when the English are moving forward.
And then
today,
what we did.
Exactly. So today it's categorized as English DNA, but there's a significant amount of that Anglo-Scottish
It's
DNA.
actually Scottish. And they tried to build that wall to keep us out.
That's right.
They tried to build 2.
That's right.
Didn't stop it.
That's right.
And then the English tried to pull a Aztec move. They tried to pull a little Aztec move to the Quacacans. They're like, we'll marry you, and then we'll be one nation together. And they just couldn't pull off murdering all of us. And they just had to blend the flags.
That's right.
And that's why the UK flag is the Scottish flag and the English flag together.
We need to go back.
You can't get us out of here.
We
no
need to
matter
go
what
back
you do.
to the red lion on the yellow banner, like
That shit was gas.
Robert the Bruce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got for? Because where's your ancestry from?
Yeah.
West Africa.
Who's the Puerto Rican Braveheart?
Bad
Who's the Puerto Rican Braveheart?
Bad Bunny.
Bad
Mansa
Bunny.
Musa.
Bad-
Maybe that's your dude.
Mansa Musa.
You might
Yep,
be related to
him too.
him. From Mali, from the Malian Empire, right?
Definitely am, yeah.
Why is nobody looking for Mansa Musa's gold? If he had all the gold and he's traveling all over Africa, there's got to be some.
Y'all probably stole that shit.
Really?
Come on now, we were in Scotland.
How are you going to steal a guy's grills?
He and
had a
I,
lot of
he and
booze.
I were barbarians.
How you gonna steal a guy's grills? Yo, Johnny Dang is digging through the sand right now looking for it.
That's racist, bro. But if they found Mansa Musa and they're like, "Where's his gold?" He's like,
Why don't we know
That's
more?
bad.
Why don't we know more about Mansa Musa, Mark?
"We know about Mansa Musa.
Why don't we know more?
He was smart.
Clearly, the
he-
guy was the
he-
richest guy in history.
He developed a big intellectual capital, Alexandria type beat.
Really?
Timbuktu.
Yeah.
Is Timbuktu Mansa Musa? I thought Timbuktu was Nepal.
Huh?
I thought Timbuktu
You're thinking
was
Kathmandu.
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 That one. Oh, so Timbuktu is his creation. That's his brainchild.
I'm gonna think.
Guess
You
so.
gotta go.
Maybe
look
he
for
was
this.
born there. I don't know.
Okay.
No, I think he was born in like Bamako or some shit.
Low key, we
I'm
need
sorry
it.
that I
You
don't
gotta
know
go to
more about-
Africa next, yo.
What do you mean
That's-
Africa? He's bit. Let
Nah,
me
but
show you the
like,
map. Let
not
me show you the
Egypt,
map.
not-
Let me show you
like
the map.
real Africa.
That's Africa.
Nah,
That's
real
Africa.
Africa.
That's where
Okay.
civilization started.
Have you ever done a DNA test? Do you know where your folks come from?
Yeah, I have Nigerian, Congo, and then a few other things. I got a little white in me. Ugh.
Yo,
it's like 8%.
You want a little more?
you're
One?
8% white.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's
Damn.
a
Hey,
lot.
relax, relax.
That's a lot.
Do you
bro.
know what it is? It's probably like Spain
Yeah.
or something.
No, it's probably slave master. One of my people.
Whoa, dude, come on. Why are you gonna bring that up, dude? What the hell?
Probably.
No.
Why you gotta do this to the mood? We're having fun
Yeah.
talking about colonization and the eradication
you
of
asked me a
cultures, and
question.
then
You
you
want me
gotta
to
bring
lie?
that up? That's insane.
You want me to lie?
Think about the Quacacans, what they went through.
Have you guys ever talked about death this much on a?
Oh, it's our favorite thing, dude.
Oh,
The
yeah.
last Patreon.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. That is very true. Okay. We need to know about Atlantis, bro.
All right, let's do it.
Let me just tell you something. I love this. I love hearing stories about ancient cultures and learning about history specifically through story.
Yeah.
Like learning the facts of history is interesting, but learning history through story, I don't care if it's like real or not. Oh my God. It's almost like that's what people did before books.
Yeah.
Right? You just sat around and like they told you what happened,
Yeah.
and it just got a little bit more sexy. And I think we kind of got to get rid of the textbook shit. Like, I don't want to learn the dates. I want to learn the story
vibe.
and how it informs the dates.
Yeah.
I totally agree, man. I totally agree.
Oh, this is so lovely.
I think that the best
stupidest
historians
ticket,
are able to not make it so sterile. That's kind of the problem. with
Again, I'm
modern-
not saying we shouldn't learn history, but like you can learn history through the oldest medium of digesting and retaining information, which is story. Like our brains are like
Yeah, but then it's a
hardwired.
game of telephone, and then by the time you
What
get
you think
the
history is?
yeah, but if you put it down on books, then
You
it's
think
more accurate.
you think
a little bit.
FDR was really paralyzed? Come on, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you gonna believe that?
I do think he was.
Nah.
Yeah,
Nah.
You're just buying the propaganda.
Yeah.
Mark.
You had a boner. You couldn't stand up.
Definitely. Definitely.
Oh,
My
I've had a
man
few
was
of those.
horny.
I had a few of those. Yeah.
Come on, there's different things in history that we just accept. We just accept as reality, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
Give me any time in history, and then Mark will tell you how it's not.
Atlantis. They're gonna go off. Ping pong back and forth.
I have one other crazy one about the Werejaguar,
Tell me about the Werejaguar.
but after Atlantis.
Okay,
After
after
Atlantis.
Atlantis.
Yeah.
All right. So
Before you start, I need you to give us what the idea of Atlantis is. Let's not, you know,
God.
just give us the idea of Atlantis in most people's heads. There's a
Yeah.
hotel in the Bahamas. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Atlantis.
So
Please
in most-
take my word.
in most people's minds,
Yeah.
there was an island chain. Well, some people think it was the Azores. That this ancient lost empire civilization existed on, and it was like a city of concentric circles. You guys have probably seen this.
Yes.
It's like
Who
three,
said this?
three
This
different
is like
circles.
what, Plato or
This
something.
is Plato. He
Yes.
was an Athenian.
But he didn't see it. He heard from a guy. So this is secondhand.
Yeah, we're definitely getting
And you
into
want
that.
word of mouth
Stories.
shit.
And
Word of mouth is fire, bro. The entirety of our friendship is word of mouth.
Where else do words
that's a
come
very
from?
that's a
I
very
don't get that whole
Scottish
thing.
idea. The Scottish Celts didn't believe in writing down their customs. They believed in
Fire. Well, you don't write that. I fucked 3 sheep to get like. You don't want that, right? You just
Yeah,
be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
a girl from Wales came.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what was interesting is that the Celts, who really the Scottish people come from, they were actually literate in all of the ancient languages.
what I tell people.
And they could read and write in all of them.
I tell
but
people
they
this all the
chose
time.
not to write in their own language.
It was our choice.
That's right. Yeah.
Doesn't that
very
seem-
They
calculated?
could
Y'all were
write
illiterate,
all the
bro.
We
languages.
knew
and
every
chose not
single
to write
language.
anything
That's
down.
right. That's
we
right.
knew
That's
all
a fact.
the languages.
But
You didn't know
that's
this?
not true.
How is
Yeah,
it not
like,
true?
That's like him being like, I speak Chinese. I'm like, prove
I
it. You're
do
like,
speak
I
Chinese.
just choose not to speak.
Yeah.
Bro, I do speak it. And you know it, and you've heard me speak it. You heard me speak it.
Well, I don't know Chinese either, so I don't know if what you're saying is Chinese.
One of my favorite accounts right now. I can't believe I haven't sent you this. And then we're going to get to Atlantis. But there's a guy, and he's got to be a polyglot or something because he's so good at it. But what he does is, and I wish I had his fucking name. Maybe, Joe, you can look it up for me because I would love to credit him. He goes up to people in the street. I think he's in Paris or something like that. He
Oh,
goes
yeah,
up to
yeah.
different tourists.
Is this the Asian dude?
No, he's a white guy. But he goes up to them in the
white
street
now.
and he speaks fake their language. And he goes, where are you guys from? Where are you guys from? And they're like, oh, we're from Japan. And he goes, okay. Tell me this. Tell me what I'm saying. And then he speaks the most perfect fake Japanese you've ever seen in your life. He'll do it with Chinese
But it's
people.
just gibberish.
It's gibberish.
Yeah.
But it's so close that they think his accent's bad. So they're like really trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and they're going, oh, no. You know, but it sounds so good. He's this like skinny white guy. He almost kind of looks Russian-y. Oh, you got to see it. I can't believe I haven't sent you this.
No,
I just
that's
die laughing at this guy.
That's
Anyway,
so funny.
Atlantis. Okay.
Yeah, so most people think it is this lost ancient empire, and I should say what most people think about it isn't actually like really in line with what Plato said. It's just like it evolves into our modern day mythology, right?
Yeah.
So most people think maybe it was out here, or maybe it was somewhere here in Africa, and that and that the Atlanteans built all of the major ancient structures you see around the world, like the stuff down in Cusco and some stuff that you see out in Asia, whatever. Now, what Atlantis really was, it was. I was going to make a joke.
Do it.
So what Atlantis?
Just make it.
No.
We can cut it.
I was just going to say nothing.
This is great. Why?
No, I'm just kidding.
Did you piss a lot of people off?
No, it just sounded funny, but I didn't want to like
Insult the Atlantis conspiracy theories.
Yeah. So anyways, no, it wasn't actually nothing. I mean, so Plato, his writings, you really kind of need to be a historian to sort of interpret what Plato is saying, or the context with which he's saying it is so important. So Plato is an Athenian that lives in the late 400s, early 300s BC. I believe that's right. He was one of these young kids that was influenced by, or younger people that was influenced by the teachings of Socrates. But Socrates did not write down his teachings. He just spoke to people in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. One of his closest students was Plato. Well, Socrates was eventually put to death. I forget the year. Maybe it was like 401 BC or something like that. Or maybe it was 399 BC. He's put to death by the court of Athens for corrupting the youth and essentially suggesting that perhaps the Greek gods don't exist, because he's so deep down the rabbit hole of intellectual thought that he's thought himself into being an agnostic, right?
Mm-hmm. So Jordan Peterson.
Sort of, yeah. And so he is he's put to death, and Plato spends the rest of his academic career and writing his philosophies down and teaching people, essentially telling people the stories and the points, the philosophical points that Socrates was making throughout Socrates' life. So all of Plato's written philosophy is not like Aristotle, where if you were to read the Nicomachean Ethics, that's just like Aristotle's writings of how to be a good person, right? How to treat other people. It's Aristotle speaking directly to you. It's just you and Aristotle. But Plato creates these plays almost like a scene where you've got Socrates and you've got these other characters, and they're interacting with Socrates, and the characters ask Socrates questions and Socrates answers them. Well, some of those lessons are Plato's ideas, his own, putting them in Socrates' mouth, and some of them are ideas that Socrates gave Plato, and Plato puts it back in Socrates' mouth, right? So in Plato's writings, they talk about this lost city of Atlantis at various different times. And so essentially the chain of custody of the story is that Solon, an Athenian lawmaker in the 600s BC or early 500s BC, he's an Athenian lawmaker that basically goes on this vacation for, I think, a decade, and he eventually goes to Egypt. And when he's in Egypt, he's taken to I think that Sais was the capital at the time, because it was the Sate Empire or the Saite Kingdom, and so he's taken to the city of Sais, where he meets a priest. And the priest essentially tells him about when Athens was at war with this ancient civilization called Atlantis at one point in time. The whole story is told to Solon, supposedly in the 600s in Egypt. Solon goes back from Egypt. He goes back up to Athens. He lives the rest of his life. He tells that story to some people. And over the course of much more than 100 years, almost 200 years, the story supposedly comes all the way down to Plato. And then Plato is the first one to write that down inside a philosophical story that's telling like a bigger tale that's more relevant to the Athenians. And so people take that story, and basically what the story is there was this ancient civilization that existed in a certain place. Just insert all the descriptions that he adds of Athens, or of Atlantis. And that Atlantis rises, and that it's at war with Athens, and that Athens eventually defeated Atlantis, some 9,000 years ago, according to what Solon says that the Egyptians told him. 9,000 years before, which would be 9,600 BC, and then this massive like cataclysmic wave washed over the city of Atlantis and sunk it into the depths of the sea, right? And so the moral of the story is that this civilization was so powerful and so wealthy and so successful that it essentially spoiled itself, and it lost all of the original foundations of what had made it great, which allowed Athens to conquer the city, and then eventually the gods destroyed.
It's about greed, really.
It's about greed, yeah. And so he is telling, the reason that Plato is telling that story is to be a reminder to the Athenian people who you should strive to be, right? Now, most people sort of ignore why Plato is telling this story, and then they just focus on Atlantis. And so that has led us on this huge rabbit hole hunt. Now, here's the thing is, some people, just because they're so caught up in the story of Atlantis, they sort of take Plato as like some kind of biblical figure, right? Where you have to hang on every word and every precise description of what he's saying about this place or the story that he is relaying, right? But in reality, no classical Greek author would ever do that because Greeks are notoriously the worst historians in the entire ancient world because there are no old Greeks. The Greeks lost their memory. The Egyptians know that the Greeks don't know anything about their ancient past. So whenever the Greeks in classical periods are writing down about their past, they never are. That's why there's so much Greek mythology. So they're always making up
everything
some kind
is lore.
of story. Yeah, and so even
That's
by
what you want.
And that's why we love them.
and so
It's
even
the most
by
interesting.
450 BC, where all that power is kind of culminating and they're really coming together, they're really writing a lot. They have modern historians like Thucydides that's writing down the Peloponnesian War, and he tells it in a like as honest as he can be. The best historian of his contemporary time, and he was a good historian of his contemporary time. But it was really difficult for the Greeks to reach back in time because it was such a hazy, like they don't really understand their distant past. So if Plato's existing here in 450 BC, and he's relaying a message from Solon, who lived in the 600s, even people who lived in the 600s are semi-mythical, legendary people to people in the 400s because the Greeks don't really have a historical chronology that they can follow very well. It's all kind of oral tradition, and not so much of it was written down. So you wouldn't even take a Greek who's writing about his world just 150 or 200 years earlier seriously, because everything else that they write about that was happening in the 600s is wildly inaccurate according to what we found in the archaeological data. Now, does that mean that the entire story of Atlantis is bullshit? Well, no. I think that there are kernels of reality that are things that actually happened in the Greek world that exist in legend, and they still remember and kind of know about. But maybe these are stories you grow up hearing about, but things that really did happen. Like for centuries. Archaeologists question whether or not the city of Troy that was in Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey was even a real city, let alone did the Trojan War even happen. Well, then I think it's Schliemann finds the city of Troy right here near the gates to the Black Sea, and then they find the city of Troy and they realize that it was real. And this whole time, the Greeks were able to like hold on to the story of the end of the Bronze Age. That war was probably about 1150, and then shortly after that, Bronze Age collapses. That's a cataclysmic collapse. All the civilizations fall apart, they abandon the cities, and everyone goes back to being nomadic, like farmers, right? So they lose their whole cultural memory. But maybe some of those grand stories survive. Clearly the Trojan War, there was a grand event that survived, and eventually was written down by Homer, or whoever Homer really was. Now, the first thing that I think that Plato was drawing on when he wrote about Atlantis was there was a city called Helike that was on the coast of that was on the Greek coast, just a bit north of Athens, I believe. And in 373 BC, there was an earthquake somewhere in the Aegean, and it cast this huge wave over the city and sunk the entire city. And so, just like in one day, all these people were drowned. That had happened about 13 years approximately before the story of Atlantis appears in Athens, and Plato is talking about it. So there's this story of this flood that's sitting in the back of his mind. But even more so than that, the Greeks definitely would have remembered a much, 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 much more dramatic cataclysmic event that happened further back in time for them. And it was the first civilization of ancient Greece. So right here in the mainland and across these islands, this is classical ancient Greece. But really, it started here on this little island called Crete. And there was a civilization there called the Minoans. We don't know much about the Minoans. They existed before the time of the Trojan War, long before that. But on this island right here, this island is called the Island of 100 Cities. And there's all these big, super rich, like palisade cities that dot the entire island. And the cities will be like 3 to 4 stories tall, these huge labyrinthian palaces. It's the kind of architecture that you did not see in ancient Egypt. You didn't see it anywhere. It's a kind of public architecture that was possibly never recreated until Roman public architecture, like the Roman forums, these big multi-level buildings for people to be walking around in. They had marble private toilets up on their 4th floors. They had like indoor plumbing. They had aqueducts that ran throughout the cities and brought fresh water into the cities. I mean, the most sophisticated ancient culture of the Bronze Age by far. If an average person living on Crete traveled to Egypt, he'd be walking around Egypt thinking this place was a fucking dump. And this place right here, at the center of the Mediterranean, obviously the center of all the trade routes, they were a seafaring empire, and they were filthy, filthy, filthy rich. From about the years, let's say 2000 BC, definitely before that, because they were interacting with the Egyptians during the time that the Egyptians were building the pyramids. These guys are here. But let's say from the earliest times, maybe like 2500 BC, at the very, very, very earliest times, all the way to, let's say like 1450 BC, 1400 BC. So they've got this maybe a 600, 800 year period where they're just the kings of the Eastern Mediterranean. Well, they have this little island north of that. And in ancient times, the island is called Thera. In modern day times, it's called Santorini. I don't know if you guys have ever been. So there are ruins on Santorini, and it's a city called Akrotiri. And Akrotiri was one of the most elaborate and wealthy cities throughout all of the Minoan world. It was kind of like Pompeii. Like Pompeii was a vacation retreat for the rich people of Rome to go and gamble and have sex and party. And if you lived in Pompeii, you were super wealthy, right? Well, Akrotiri was very, very similar to that. It was the wealthiest people of Minoan society are living there. Well, about the year 1600 BC, the 4th largest volcanic eruption in the history of the entire planet erupted out of the island of Santorini and blackened the skies of the Aegean Sea and the nearby Mediterranean for days at a time. What expelled out of the volcano was so significant that there might even be records from the same time in Egypt of phenomena happening in Egypt that was affecting their weather. And some people even theorize that the effects, because we found the pumice from the volcano in Egypt, and some people wonder if the plagues of Exodus were not caused by the eruption of Santorini. And so it was such a cataclysmic eruption. It instantly buried the city of Akrotiri in like dozens of feet of volcanic material and ash that hardened over time. And then it blackened the sky over the main island of Crete for days at a time. Now, a lot of people thought that the whole city of Crete, when they first found the first palace at Knossos, and then they started excavating all these dozens of other palaces, they would find this thin burn layer that came from 1600 BC, about when the volcano erupted. And it was kind of an anomaly, because nobody understood, like, why is it such a thin burnt layer? Why is it not just cataclysmic, like raining down on the island? Because all 100 cities burned down at the exact same time across the entire island. The whole island like fell apart. Well, nobody really understood why. But there's a theory that's proposed that I think is kind of interesting, that when it blackened the sky, every single person on the island had to pull out their torches and their candles. And so while it's absolute chaos, it's hard to get food, you can't go to the market, you don't know what's happening. I mean, the sun isn't even coming back up anymore. The smoke is like coming down over the cities and everything. It's absolute chaos. People burn down their own cities because the chaos. So there's this thin burn layer over the entire island. So all the cities burned down at exactly the same time in the midst of all this chaos. Then it's not like Minoan culture disappears, but over the next 100 years, it slips into control of the Mycenaeans, which is like Agamemnon, the guys who waged war on Troy. They came in and wiped out the people, the Minoans who were living in the islands, and that were living on the main island. Just wiped them out, basically consumed their whole culture. They rebuilt the Palace of Knossos, but that's it. All other 99 some odd buildings or some odd cities stayed burned down, and the Mycenaeans built up new ones. Now, these guys had ruled over the whole Greek world for the last 800 years, okay? Their principal, I don't want to call it a deity, but like their cultural monster, the thing that you would use to identify them, whereas like some later Greek cultures, it might be like Medusa or something like that. For them, it was the Minotaur, the bull-headed man, or just a bull's head. So what's really interesting is when Plato is talking about the city of Athens crushing Atlantis, and then Atlantis gets destroyed in this huge cataclysm, this big wave, whatever. One of the things that's analogous to that, and that is kind of in the back of the Athenian mind, their mythology, is this myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. But the Athenians may not even know who the Minoans ever were, because this is such an ancient civilization that's been buried for so long and in ruins. But one of their core mythologies is Theseus, this Athenian, rising up and going off to this distant land and killing the Minotaur, right? But then along with that, you have Athens rising up and going and killing Atlantis, okay? Athens was controlled by the Mycenaeans, who then swept into the Minoan area. So Athens during the Bronze Age was a Mycenaean city who went into the land of the Minotaur and conquered them. And one of the modern comparisons that you get for Atlantis that a lot of people will make is, some people will go, well, I don't think that Atlantis had like space age technology that's more advanced than us, but I think that they were probably maybe like on par with the Roman Empire. That's what, but it's like a global Roman Empire. Well, after the Minoans fell, the only civilization that would ever reach the illustrious level of the Minoans again was the Roman Empire, some 1,000 or 1,600 years later. And so what I think that Plato is drawing on is this story that sits somewhere deep in the subconsciousness of the Greek world, of the greatest, richest empire that the ancient world ever saw, far more like the average person, far more wealthy than an Egyptian. They didn't have the same kind of huge temples, whatever, but the way of life far superior to an Egyptian or anybody else. These guys controlled all the trade routes of the Mediterranean, especially of the Greek world, and then the fourth largest volcanic eruption in world history basically brought down the end of their civilization. In fact, I ran the numbers on it. I might get the categorization of the energy expelled, but the bombs that we dropped on Japan were can be measured as 15 kilotons of energy that was expelled from the bomb. This volcano was 30 million kilotons of energy. That's how
Oh shit.
Yeah, that's how cataclysmic something like this was. Wow. So you can imagine that something like that sits permanently in the back of the minds of a Greek person. And so I think in Plato's Atlantis, you have these kernels of truth. You have this was actually Europe's first ancient civilization, Crete. So the Minoans of Crete. So the Greeks definitely remember it. They definitely remember the dramatic events that led to them being destroyed. They remember the Mycenaeans, which had colonized Athens, the Athenians, like core principal mythological figure is Theseus, who was an Athenian, but also a Mycenaean as well, who went into the land of the Minotaur and killed the Minotaur, basically. And I think that is what Plato is drawing on, and that's a like, it's an actual like robust archaeological idea, rather than sometimes I get tired of like talking about the mystery with no actual theories, what I mean? And so that's sort of, if I have to put a theory as to what I think it is.
Does anybody else share this viewpoint on it?
There are archaeologists who agree, and then there are archaeologists who like
completely
out and out completely disagree because they say well, and you know what's really interesting is they say how Atlantis was like a circular sort of island or whatever. Well, Santorini, even before it erupted, was a circular island. Like it was a circular island with water in the middle. You can look up the way, like it's geologic or geographic formation, but it was a circular island. But there's all kinds of different discrepancies, right? Like where it says that Atlantis was beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Well, this is supposed to be the Pillar of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar. It's supposed to be out here. And the geology that they describe there isn't the same as what it would be on Crete. And then they say that Atlantis had elephants or whatever. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is that there is a miniature African elephant that used to exist on Crete.
Pygmy elephant or something like that?
Yeah. Now, I maybe didn't live on Crete at the same time as the Minoans.
Oh, this is
But
Santorini?
there were bones of these mini elephants
On the island.
found down inside the caves
Oh,
that
my
definitely
God.
the Minoans would have known about. So there's all these little clues that like it's the Athenians having this really fuzzy memory of the ancient past of the Greek world, and he's like explaining it in such a way where Athenians will listen to him and what he's saying, right? But there are kernels of truth in there. And I think that it's at least the city of Helike and the Minoan civilization falling apart, and maybe it's other things. But I think that it's Plato drawing on different things that he was aware of growing up and telling this story that is particularly relevant to the Athenians. The Athenians at this point have now become the new Minoans. They rule the seas, they rule all the trade routes. They're just like the Minoans. And so Plato is telling a new story that they'll listen to, right? So
It's all a little like the pieces of truth. It's like, well, there was a battle where the Athenians did defeat this really wealthy culture.
Yeah.
By proxy.
Yeah.
But they did. And then there was this cataclysm that did destroy the culture. It wasn't a flood, but there was a flood nearby, but this one technically wasn't a flood. It was a volcano that also caused the plagues.
Well, and when Santorini erupted, it did push a tsunami down into Crete. It did mess up some of these cities on the north side of the island. But most of the destruction is that small burn layer that they think was from people accidentally lighting their own towns on fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And then Plato writes a story about greed and not being too greedy. And then ironically, people create these like entire internet profiles trying to find Atlantis
Yeah.
Purely for
money.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't thought
tanking
about
their
that.
whole career.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I'm later this year. I'm doing an expedition to Crete. I'm gonna write a book called Lost Cities of the Minotaur, and it's gonna be the theory, like kind of getting into it and explaining like if we're gonna come up with an actual archaeological explanation.
This could be it.
Yeah.
Marc has been to Crete.
Yeah.
Have you really?
Yeah. Went to Hania.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. It's unbelievable.
Did you go see Knossos, like the palace or anything?
No. It's one of the most interesting places of all time. Because like even within semi-modern history, it was controlled by everyone.
Yeah.
Like, it was like the Greeks had it, the North Africans had it, the Nazis had it, the Jews had it.
Yeah.
Like there's like
Really? I didn't know that.
The oldest synagogues in Greece, I'm pretty sure, are in Crete, because there was an exile where they told all the Jews to go over there. And
Really? I
so
didn't
there's
know.
like a Muslim section, Christian section, Jewish section. The food is amazing. The Turks owned it for a period of time. And it's like maybe the best food I've ever had, because it's this influx of like Greek food, Turkish food. It's got like this insane freshness. And they also have an ideology where they're like really proud. Like the Cretans are like, we're not Greek.
Yeah, we're Crete.
Yeah, like low-key, like they're like, yeah, we're Greek, but like, no, we don't. Like I asked, we had dinner, and every time we had dinner, I was like, where's the farthest piece of food on the plate? And they'd be like, the goat cheese. I was like, how far? They're like, other side of the island. I was like, nothing's from the mainland? They're like, no.
Wow.
Why would we drink wine from Athens? It's like, we have the best wine in the world on Crete. Like, it makes no sense.
Really?
They were so proud. They're almost like Texans. It's also the highest gun ownership, and maybe like all
They
of
have
Southern.
guns?
Yeah.
Wow.
They all have like shotguns and shit.
I mean, when you're invaded like 100 different times in history,
Yeah.
self-defense is probably pretty important for our culture.
Yeah.
People call them like the Texas of Southern Europe.
I did not know this.
That's what people say.
Yeah.
This is good for your book, my boy.
Yeah. I may have
I'll
to
write the
use
forward,
You,
don't
I may have to
worry.
use you as a resource.
Exactly.
Brother, I don't want you to miss your flight. We could talk for
I
hours.
know,
We will do
especially
it
in-
again sometime.
This is so fun.
This is so awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so
I still got
much.
plenty of time.
You do?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to go over before we get out of here?
I don't know.
I mean, the Werejaguar thing.
Oh, yeah. Finish on this
the
one.
fun way to set this up is that at a certain point in Central American history, there were people that were born with a very specific disability or a birth malformation, you could say. And they were deified
Because of it.
and raised to a high status within the culture because of this disability, because it looked like something else.
Oh, no way.
Is that a fair way to set it up? Maybe it's sensationalizing a
Yeah,
little,
yeah.
but
No, it's
No
right. It's
way.
right. Yeah. So the first time that Europeans,
Is this going where I think it's going?
I don't know.
Is it the captain of the ship? Is it going that way?
Oh my God.
Is it going that way?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. So
Phew.
dastardly dog.
No. So let's say there. I'm gonna give this example and then we'll go back. In ancient Greece, if a kid was born with a birth defect, you would walk them to the top of a mountain and you'd lay them on the mountain. People will say that like threw them off the mountain. No, they would just lay the child on top of the mountain, and it's called exposure. You would expose the kid to the elements, give him back to the gods, because you can't afford to take care of someone who's lame, right? Like
Right.
someone who has a birth defect that's not going to be able to be like a participating part of society that's going to hold you back. Can't do that. Also, the Greeks, and which permeates into the rest of the European world, we care about aesthetics. You know, like you would like your kid to be born fully anatomically normal and healthy, and so they really prioritize that. But when the Spaniards arrived in the Aztec capital, in Moctezuma's palace, when they got up into his palace, they saw that his palace was filled with people of all different kinds of deformities and strange, like people who were so deformed that they were almost like creatures, almost like they had been bred to be that way. Like they were really, really strange people. And this surprised the Spaniards that these were like venerated people that Moctezuma wanted to hang out with. He saw them as being blessed by the gods, that there was something unique and important about them. They saw this with like dwarves. Like dwarves would have high status because they would look as people who were touched by the gods, that maybe they were clairvoyant of some kind, or there's something special and different about them. So the Native Americans had this inverted view of deformities and things like that. Well, in the Olmec world, this is my personal theory. I don't know that there's a single other scholar on the planet of like the 12 of us that there are for the Olmec world that would agree with this. But in the Olmec world, you see there are no gods. There's no pantheon of gods. All we see is ancestor worship, and then we see some people who have the anatomical features of a jaguar. Sometimes it's only their teeth. Sometimes they're like fully a jaguar. Like they're a person with jaguar claws, and they've got fangs, and their nose has changed into a jaguar, and they've got like cat eyes and everything. And so throughout the Olmec world, you can see this thing that has been dubbed like a werewolf, the Werejaguar. And it's these, what I think it is when I interpret it. So like you look at the Olmec heads. We could pull up an Olmec head if we're here. So you look at the Olmec heads. They interpret these as being kings or rulers. You never ever ever see an Olmec head who is also a Werejaguar. So, and there's about 17 of these basalt heads, but there's thousands of examples of. If we could look up Werejaguar, it's WERE and then Jaguar. You'd put in Olmecs or something. So there are thousands. Oh, wow, there's a lot of drawings here. Let's do, if you put the word jade behind it. So this will bring up there we go. So any one of these will do. So there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these examples of these artifacts of people who are Werejaguars. And you can tell that they're people with the anatomical features of a large cat.
Is this Asians reaching Mesoamerica? Like,
Well,
wrong to say that?
Mesoamericans, they are Asian. They're Asiatic
Getting
in
back.
general.
And all the jade though is like coming from this kingdom. Like
Yeah.
the Olmecs were, like,
Well,
big on
actually,
jade.
all of the Olmec gold actually came from that Maya city I was telling you about, with those giant pyramids that began at the beginning of their time at El Mirador in the middle of the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
That was how El Mirador got so rich, was the jade quarries that were nearby, and they were selling them to the Olmecs. And so they were using that money, the Maya were using that money to build up their civilization. Now, what's really interesting about the Olmec realm, and what got me thinking about this idea of people being born with deformities and this maybe having something to do with that, could we look up Olmec baby statues?
Yep.
So there are all these statues of Olmec babies that you can tell are not anatomically normal children. They're children that are, I don't know if they're, the one that's on the right at the bottom. Yeah, with the blue background. If we could zoom into that one. So a lot of these babies are born with like little cleft lips and they're real fat and chubby. They look like babies that have like Downs, or they have something, you know, there's something wrong with them, or as Western people would say. And so, but you see thousands of these baby statues, like these babies are being revered. Why would we have baby statues? Well, just my theory, and one of the only skeletons that we have ever found of the Olmec world is a baby. We hardly ever find adult skeletons. But what I wonder is if when children were born with deformities, they were revered and they were seen as being touched by the gods, and they were honored with these little statues. Like maybe their parents would have them commissioned when they would die. And maybe a lot of children, well, we know in general that a lot of children died in ancient times. Infant mortality was extremely high. Yeah. 5 out of 7 of Marcus Aurelius's children died, I'm pretty sure, in childhood. But all of these babies look like they may have some kind of condition. Now, what I wonder is when you look at Olmec artifacts, could we look up maybe look up Laventa, and then Laventa. But there's this scene here of like maybe a couple dozen people who all have Werejaguar features about them, and you'll see in lots of other scenes where you just see these massive groups of people who have these. So you see that right there, that gathering of people. So this is really, really cool. These are statuettes that are a screenshot in time. So those big pillars standing next to them, those are known as stelae, and they had carvings on them. Well, we found those stelae in the jungles, or like in the ruins of the city of Laventa, and then they found this cache here. And what this cache is showing is these Werejaguar people walking in front of a stele in like in a procession, some kind of ancient ritual. It's like a screenshot of their world, but we don't know the context or understand what's going on here. But the point I'm getting across is that the Olmec heads themselves, which always depict normal-looking men, are vastly, vastly outnumbered by the amount of artifacts that depict people with Werejaguar features. And so what I start wondering here is, well, my first thought was, okay, this is a whole different class of people. You clearly have kings that never look like Werejaguars, and you have all of these Werejaguar people who they're like priests or something. They're like involved in the shamanic realm. And so I started wondering, are there people being born with deformities in their world? Is this some kind of deformity that they like revered and that gave you the right to be a part of the priestly class? So I started looking into to mid 1900s Veracruz, Mexico, which is the heart of the Olmec world. And in the 1970s, there was one medical survey done that showed that a disproportionate amount of indigenous kids had what's known as ectodermal dysplasia compared to, these were kids that were in small villages in Veracruz, not living actually in the city of Veracruz. And what ectodermal dysplasia is, it is a disability that does not come with a learning disability. So you're still fully there, but it's a complete dental disability where you don't grow any teeth in your gums other than 2 fangs right here. Look up ectodermal dysplasia fangs. Do that. So look at that. So kids would be born like this, and without a learning disability, and it would look like they had the teeth of a jaguar of some kind. And so what I wonder is, were the Olmecs not trying to genetically breed people who looked like this. And if you were born with ectodermal dysplasia,
That gave you
were
higher status.
It gave you higher status, and you were born with some kind of intrinsic power.
Wow.
The thing on top of this is there are all these things called Werejaguar altars. If we could look up altar for Olmec, we have all these Werejaguar altars that we know that Werejaguar priests would like sit on top of it. But the depiction, so you could go to so that one right there, if you could possibly zoom in on that. So that is a Werejaguar priest with an elongated skull underneath that hat. He's carrying a baby, and he's emerging from a portal, which is actually a cave. These caves are in Guerrero, Mexico. That baby, when you stand over him, I've been to this site many times. That baby, when you stand over him, he's got these downturned lips like a cat. He's got fangs coming out of his mouth, and so does the man carrying him. And what I think that this depicts is a sacred procession that is symbolizing the priest who would actually be sitting on top of this monument, like this powerful priest. The image below him is a screenshot of his sacred procession that he went through as a child, being carried in and out of the caves of Guerrero, Mexico. And it's like the procession that when he was born as a Werejaguar, he was taken on and essentially imbued with the power of the Werejaguar and came back out. And so from this is all just my theory, and I think that we see examples of, like in ancient Egypt, how we see that the pharaohs were warring against the priests because the priests would become super powerful. You see the same thing in the Olmec realm. You'll see Olmec heads. Lots of archaeologists can determine the way that something is buried, if it's buried immediately, because the stratigraphic layers are all messed up. They don't form naturally. They form like immediately. And geologists can tell that. Archaeologists can tell that. And so a lot of the Olmec heads were buried instantly. And the tops of some of the heads and the backs of them and sometimes the faces have claw marks on them, like intentional claw marks that are chiseled in, but each claw mark is a space of your hand away from each other. So it's like an aesthetic figure of a jaguar slicing this Olmec king's face open, or the top of his head, or the emblem that's in the top of his helmet open. And what I think it was is there were periods where the Werejaguar priestly class would probably overcome and assassinate and kill the kings, bury their heads under the ground, cut it up as a statement to everybody that the Werejaguar is predominant. And then there's these warring classes back and forth with each other.
How long ago would this be?
This is over 3,000 years ago, and this is America's first civilization.
The Olmecs.
Yeah. And so the Olmecs rise and fall
before
anything else is really going on. So they rise and they fall. And then about the time they fall is when the Maya start taking off, and then the Zapotecs start taking off. So that's Matthew Sterling next to the main head at Leventa. You see all those markings on the top of his head?
Yeah.
So my thought is they would push that head down into the ground and carve up the top of it and maybe leave it exposed as a statement that the Werejaguars had taken over.
Wow.
But later on in Olmec civilization, like their last capital city of Tres Zapotes, the Werejaguar is gone. So the Olmec heads, the kingdom or whatever it is, the non-Werejaguar class wins out. They expelled the Werejaguar people. They ultimately win. And then so what's crazy about the Olmecs is they are just like the Minoans, which is probably why I'm interested in the Minoans. They are the most powerful civilization of their region. They rise and fall before really anything else is going on. And we don't know their name. The reason that we call the Minoans, I'll tell you the origins of both their names, is because we name them after maybe, or at least what Greek mythology tells us about the ancient lost kings of Crete, or one of them, his name was Minos, which may have just been the title of what it meant to be a king on Crete. So when Sir Arthur Evans finds the palace of Knossos, he just calls them, rather than after Minos, he calls them the Minoans.
Yeah.
The Olmecs are people who live right here, but when the Spaniards were going through Mexico 3,000 years after the Olmecs were around, they're probably the Olmecs are so old that the Aztecs probably never even knew the Olmecs had existed. But the Spaniards are asking, they're learning everything about Mexico, and the Aztecs tell them that the people who live in this land that farm rubber are the rubber people, but that translates in Nahuatl to Olmecas. So they just name the ancient people after the name of the modern people. But the Olmecs had risen and fallen before the Maya had really gotten started. And so we don't know the name of the Olmecs. We don't know what language they spoke. We don't know what they called themselves. We don't know their history. All we can do is look at the artifact record and try to put puzzle pieces together.
Fuck.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy the idea of going back in time, seeing the shamanic ritual with this Werejaguar priest. He's standing on top of this altar. He has ectodermal dysplasia, these 2 teeth coming out. It's like in the middle of the night. It's like rainy. You can hear the forest over you. And he's standing on top of this giant sculpture of himself as a baby getting brought out of a portal by the priest before him. And he's basically telling the people like, yo, we're going to kill the kings. And he's got these fangs, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Imagine, man.
Like, what an insane thing to go back in time to see.
No less complicated, dramatic, nuanced, or intelligent than any of the other ancient civilizations that we've known about. This is, when you imagine all those conversations that Greek and Roman politicians must have been having with each other when both their lives are on the line politically.
Yeah.
Same thing's happening in the Olmec world. It's just we don't have a record of it. But must have been, these aren't primitive people to be able to erect those megalithic heads come from 100 kilometers as the bird flies or as the crow flies away, and they have to be transported. They think possibly through the Gulf Coast a little bit, down into the Coatzacoalcos River, over swamps and down through valleys and stuff. And they've never been able to figure out like how big the boats had to be to transport them. There was this nautical engineer that worked with Maya Exploration Center, which is the center that I'm a part of. And he created this like algorithm thing where you could put in the hypothetical size of your Olmec head and the hypothetical size of the raft that it would be sitting on. And if you put in the hypothetical size of, say, if you created a raft that was too long to be able to go down the narrow stretches of the river that they would be moving these heads down, and you put a 5-ton head on that raft, it would flip the raft and sink it. But the smallest head is 6 tons, and the largest head is 50 tons.
Oh my God.
50?
Yeah, so it's just, it's 50. And so you have all these mysteries that are so similar to Egypt, but most people don't talk about it or know anything about it.
You never hear anything about the old
crafted stone sculpture that's 50 tons.
Yeah.
Made 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really remarkable.
Yeah. Well, and some of the main ones are I think they're about they're about 3,500 years old, 3,200 years old. Yeah.
Luke,
it's really, really crazy.
This is mind-blowing. Thank you so much for being here and just doing this. This was awesome.
Yeah, man.
We got to do it again sometime.
We definitely will.
This is great. Luke Caverns, everybody, make sure you go check him out on YouTube. You can explode some big shit in the Amazon soon. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for.
I'll come back. And then we'll do that.
Love it.
Hell yeah.
Peace.